Meeting called to order.
So again, very quickly running through our traditional opening, at least for now. So in accordance with an act to implement provisions necessary to the health, welfare, and safety of the citizens of Maine in response to the COVID-19 public health emergency, as enacted to read Section G1 MRSA subsection 403A, public proceedings through remote access during declaration of state of emergency due to COVID-19. This business meeting is being held with a mix of in-person and virtual using Zoom. The meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the maranacook.org YouTube channel. Due to the change in format of this Board of Directors meeting, please be aware that during the course of this meeting, the microphones of the viewing audience will be muted except during the identified portions of public comments at this meeting. For today's agenda, this is item number 4. Please also note that there is a budget workshop tonight also, and there is a public comment section, and that is under 9E. There is a chat feature in Zoom, but we will not be utilizing it. If you have any questions or comments, we respectfully ask that you contact the central office, email the superintendent, or any other board member, and an answer will be provided to you as soon as possible. We ask for the public's patience during these highly unusual circumstances. So attendance and all votes will be done through roll call. When your name is called, board members, please cast your vote with the 3 available options of yes, approve, no, disapprove, or abstain. I am going to now proceed to the roll call. Kim.
Here.
Wendy.
Here.
Dane.
Here.
Kathy.
Here.
Melissa.
Here.
Alex.
Here.
Patty.
Here.
Rebecca.
Here.
Betty.
Here.
Sean.
Here.
Gary.
Here.
And David.
Here.
Thank you, everyone. I'll turn it back over to Dr. Carr.
So we have student representatives tonight. We're going to start with the middle school. Emma Cooper.
I guess I'll go first. I am Cooper Tarbuck. I will be presenting about school-wide events and what they have been doing on the Katahdin team. So for school-wide events, we started a new quarter last Monday and then proceeded to go remote for the rest of the week. We also started our NAWIA, Northwest Evaluation Association, testing this Monday, and basketball and Nordic have started practicing again. The student government has started planning for the Winter Carnival, which will take place in March this year. And the civil rights team has made a website as well as a slideshow for Black History Month. On the Katahdin team, they are looking at geography, specifically the 5 themes of location, place, human environment interaction, and movement and regions. They are starting that unit by picking a country and creating a slideshow about it. In their ELA classes, they are wrapping up their social movement papers and are starting a unit on argumentative and persuasive writing. In math, the 6th graders are working on algebraic expressions, specifically exponents, and writing and solving algebraic expressions and equations. The 7th graders are working on geometry, where they are finding the surface area and volume of geometric shapes. And the 8th graders are finishing up their work on the Pythagorean theorem. Katahdin has art and coding as their UAs this quarter. In art, they made neurographic drawings while they were remote, and will be working virtually with Pamela Moulton to upcycle old denim to create a wall of art about what it is like to be a student in the pandemic. In coding, they will be using code.org to gradually build up a basic knowledge of coding and computer science. That is all I have for now.
Thank you, Rafa. Super.
So I guess I will go next. I'm Emma Rosner, and I'm going to be talking about both the Moose teams and the Acadia teams. I'm going to start with Moose. Moose has been finishing up their civilizations and will begin an activity to see how the students use them in negotiations for trade and respond to natural disasters. For math, 6th graders have been working on dividing fractions, 7th graders have been working on solving for variables, and 8th graders have just started to work on the Pythagorean theorem. In health, students have been learning about how to manage stress as well as relationships. They've also been learning about substance abuse and how to prevent it. In Spanish, students will be working on a compare and contrast system between the different languages that they've been learning this year. And for Acadia, in music, they have been discussing the 7 theories of origin and will be learning about how to read and play basic songs on both the piano and guitar. In German, students have been making a presentation about themselves and what they care about. They've also started to learn basic phrases such as "my name is" and "what is your name?" In math, 6th graders on Acadia are working on order of operations. 7th graders have been learning about angles and triangles, really. And 8th graders have been working on the Pythagorean theorem as well. On Team Acadia will be starting a book group on Stamped, Racism, Anti-Racism, and You by Jason Reynolds that will involve a training for both students and community members that will involve learning how to facilitate conversations about race. And that is all I have.
Thank you very much, Emma.
Hello, I'm Rocco Scott. I'm going to be talking about the Sebago team and the Royal River team. So Sebago has been learning about atoms and molecules in different states of matter. They've been conducting lots of experiments to help students see firsthand what they're learning about. They're finishing up their informational writing unit now and are going to be moving on to argumentative writing. They're trying to figure out how they can continue their planting program this year and how to handle taking care of the plants if they go remote for a week or 2 at a time in between in-person learning. And on Royal, we've moved on to learning about the government. Students have been learning about or reviewing the 3 branches of the government and the amendments. They will do a more in-depth on the judicial system and how the court system is organized. They've started a classroom economy as well to experience having to pay bills and do taxes and manage your funds. Each student was given a salary and were forced to pay for things such as food, housing, and transportation. They've started writing their informational essays as well as focusing on environmental issues and the mitigation strategies for those. Royal is also looking into inventions and how they use energy transfers, and we're going to eventually design and test our own inventions. For a UA, Royal has had PE, which has been different because of the remote learning. Students have had to make slideshows about their family, their cohort, and their PE expectations, as well as on another occasion they had to exercise for 45 minutes. And for a foreign language, they've had French.
Thank you very much.
Okay. At the high school, we just started a new quarter, which we successfully transitioned to and from remote during. So that was a little new adjusting to that. The NOEAs were postponed due to remote learning, but will be taken this Thursday and Friday. Girls and boys basketball have both had strong seasons with victories over Monmouth, Mount Blue, and Coney. And the boys basketball player, Cash McClure, reached 1,000 points this past week and got a hand-painted basketball for that. The Nordic and Alpine ski teams have also both had several wins, including the Alpine girls winning their Black Mountain meet this week. And the Hawks hockey team also beat Coney this past week. The math team continues to have virtual meets. And the outdoor clubs won a winter camping skills trip for March from Teens to Trails. And signups are open through the end of the week. And they're also looking for student participation planning the trip. And National School Counseling Week was this past week. And Student Senate encouraged students to write emails to show appreciation towards our school counselor department.
Thank you very much.
So also from the high school, some more Student Senate stuff. Student Voice has been working on multiple different projects. They've been helping plan our winter or spring carnival, working out details of the Maranicook Got Talent idea that we've been talking about, sending out surveys to find interest in other possible events to kind of raise spirits in the school. Outreach has currently been working on the carnation sale. We spent the last week advertising, and this week is our sales week. And we're also planning to make another Make a Difference week. Sustainability Committee has ordered seeds for the garden and is researching new ways to reduce food waste. School Spirit is currently working hard to plan and execute the winter and spring carnival, like I said. And they are brainstorming theme days and activities for the carnival, as well as a possible Valentine's Day decoration contest. The Health Center has been active on their Instagram page, promoting their projects and introducing people of their committee. They are trying with their Love Is project that we do each year, and finding some student support for their partnership with NAMI.
Thank you very much.
Again, thank you very much to the students that gave the reports. And like always, you're certainly welcome to stay to hear the rest of the proceedings, but we understand if you have to leave at this time. The next thing on our agenda is a presentation by the K-12 Visual and Performing Arts people who will be talking about the curriculum that they're bringing forward to the full board for approval tonight. They have been working under the leadership of Dr. Nancy Harriman, and Nancy is going to start off the presentation, and then we'll go from there.
Good evening. So the board members, you received a lot of paperwork from us with copies of things for this curriculum. The VPA curriculum proposal, which was about 5 or 6 pages long and outlines the whole thing, and then a scanned set of all the curriculum guides for K-12, and then another scanned smaller set of materials called sample units. And we're going to have teachers from art and music share with you some examples tonight that are all student work and things having to do with those sample units, okay? So the faculty in music and art have worked on this curriculum for more than 5 years. And they first took their work in progress to the curriculum committee in spring 2018. Then last January, it got approved to come to the board, but then because of the pandemic and sort of the cessation of everything, the faculty decided to wait until this year to bring it back. So we took it back to the curriculum committee with a lot of additional work that the teachers had done. And I have to tell you, I am so impressed with the faculty that we have in the arts. This is not an easy time to be a music teacher when you can't sing or play an instrument. You know, it's really challenging, but they have been very resilient and flexible, and they've adapted their instruction so that it meets all the health and safety guidelines. And they really work to engage students. And so now I'm going to let them share with you their work and let it speak for itself. So as they come up, they have, yes, they will have sheets and each person will introduce himself. Okay, and on this slide, you can just see what the 4 standards are that their whole curriculum is based on. And these were chosen partly because they apply to both art and music and drama to the extent that we have that. We don't have courses in that right now. But so Dan Gilbert's going to start for the high school for music.
Two more slides.
There he is.
No, I'm here. Sorry, I'm waiting for the slides to come up. Sorry about that. So my name is Dan Gilbert. This is going into my second year at Marana High School. First of all, on behalf of the K-12 VMPA department, I'd like to thank the school board for allowing us to present our combined curriculums this evening. The work being presented tonight is a labor of both love and passion and the product of countless hours of work over several years. Presented on this slide is a snapshot of what is assessed in our instrumental ensembles, concert band and jazz band, and also our non-group ensemble classes like intro to piano and intro to guitar. The priority standard outcome I speak to today is HSMUPR 6, Music Perform, the core of our program. This standard exists within every unit of our instrumental ensemble courses and is assessed frequently, both formally and informally. It is important to state that specifically with our performing ensembles and performance-based classes, that while the units have a specific structure and standards embedded in them, the nature of these courses require that many of the topics and skills are taught simultaneously and are oftentimes out of order from how they may appear in our unit maps. But this is due to varying performance and understanding levels of students in instrumental and vocal ensembles and the needs of students in order to meet the requirements of the music we're performing. On this next slide, this assignment is a digital alternative to a normal in-class or at-home practice assignment. Thankfully, it functions in a very similar way. Normally in a formal post-concert or informal assessment done during every ensemble rehearsal, students are critiqued on elements of performance, including intonation, rhythmic accuracy, pitch accuracy, phrasing, dynamics, and articulation. Thankfully, our digital alternative, Smart Music, allows us to continue this assessment while facing the limitations of the COVID-19 pandemic. The picture on this slide shows a completed assignment noting correct notes and rhythms marked in green and incorrect in red. Smart Music allows all of these formal and informal assessments to happen consistently and in real time and maintains a database of student recordings for both students and teachers to assess and reflect upon. Aside from the assessment and tracking opportunities this platform provides, it is proven to benefit students in helping them regulate their practice time and gives them a resource that allows them to customize their practice routine. Students can adjust many aspects of their assignments, including accompaniment, individual part, and metronome to play along with, tempo, the speed at which they play, looping, playing the same section over and over again, and fingerings, how to play the notes they might not know. And on the last slide for the high school, this is a snapshot of the automatic assessment built into the software and provides a grade book with which to track students. We're fortunate that in a time where equity and self-regulation are difficult, this program allows students to progress in their studies and improve their abilities even without live performances to look forward to or in-person instrumental instruction. While our only application of this program has occurred during the COVID-19 pandemic, it's something that I hope we'll be able to secure for future years, potentially for grades 4 through 12, and continue to use it as an assessment tool that will help identify technical and performative areas for improvement, as well as student tracking for RTI and a simplified recording process for these assessments. And now I'll be passing on the presentation to Mr. Adam Scarponi to discuss the middle school music curriculum.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. I'm sure I can speak for everyone when I say thank you for providing us time to present at the meeting this evening. And we encourage you to look at each slide more in depth and on your own time, but we are trying to respect your time. For those who may not know, I'm Adam Scarponi, and I hope it is apparent that the arts department as a whole are dedicated, caring, organized, and talented, but above all, that we strive to provide what is best for our students. The music department had many conversations around deciding a vertically aligned curriculum. The standards that were vital for the success of all students in music are literacy, connections, critique and response, and composition. At the middle school, the music program has a looped curriculum. Every student receives the same educational experience in a 3-year cycle. While there are 4 units about each year, today we focus on our composition unit. In this unit, students are encouraged to begin composing using non-standard notation and convey ideas and images that are represented musically as evidenced on slide 11. After they compose a song using music notation software that utilizes a pentatonic scale and requires only a die and a coin to create. We further understanding by exploring melodic techniques to enhance their abilities to communicate musically. Before students create their own song, we discuss how students are written in a key signature and use chord progressions. Of all the units of study, this is by far the most rewarding because students are encouraged to take risks and express themselves through creating original pieces. And as we learned from Beethoven, there are no right answers except to follow your heart. One of the goals throughout education is to provide students clear directions for growth. And we know that rubrics are great tools because the standard, as seen as your left, is really specific, but not really student friendly. And while students see this, it lacks clear evidence on how the standard scaffolds and fails to identify benchmark indicators for each grade level. And I think that's where we come in as educators. We provide students with a clear rubric that provides delineations for each grade level. And again, I believe that's the true definition of differentiation. On the last slide, we see kind of like a start to finish example of the projects that students encounter throughout the unit. And as you can see, there's a clear progression as well as time to reflect on each different composition. It's our belief that providing traditional and non-traditional examples or pathways, we're ensuring that all students are able to find success. Thank you so much for your time and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
All right, I guess it's my turn. I am Amanda Shively, one of the 2 elementary music teachers in our district. I teach at both Mount Vernon and Wayne Elementary School. I will try to keep my presentation short since I know you have a full agenda this evening. Thank you for your time, and here's a quick look at how our elementary music curriculum works. Elementary music serves the largest grade span with 6 grade levels and 24 priority standards within our curriculum. Today, we will share a snapshot of our performing strand and all the outcomes for perform across grades K through 5. The performance standard PR4 focuses more on the technical side, music literacy and music theory, while PR6 highlights the expressive elements of our performance. This slide shows a developmentally appropriate progression through the grades. Tonight, we will provide you with a deeper look at our 4th grade assessment on performance standards. There we go. What you see here is our scoring criteria for a recorder performance and the 2 levels of proficiency needed to get a passing score. Level 3 defined as meeting expectations and level 4 as exceeding them. You'll notice in order to get a level 4 score, the student needs to show skills that normally appear a grade level higher. Overall, we look at technical accuracy, how fluently the student changes notes, tone and intonation, the overall sound quality of the instrument, rhythmic accuracy, and musicianship, how accurately they play dynamics and are they playing at a consistent tempo. Now, the previous slide shows what educators use to drive our curriculum and assessment, but here we have our student-friendly materials. To the left, a visual representation of the skills progression where students can track their own progress on each song. To the right, a sample of repertoire from our Recorder Karate curriculum and a rubric to help students visualize and explain their progress towards a particular skill. With these tools, each student can accurately gauge what skills they need to master before they can move on to their next song. This instrumental unit is a year-long experience that is a critical precursor to our beginning band program in 5th grade.
Thank you for the time to present and allow us to share our hard work created over the past 6 years. I'm Jeremy Smith, and I teach in the visual arts along with my colleague, Tom Ferrero. We teach a wide array of courses, as you can see from the curriculum presented. All students that attend Marana Cook High School must complete a minimum of 1 fine arts credit, and we hope to provide numerous choices. I think everyone in our district-wide department would agree that the arts are academic, and this is the purpose of our clearly linked units and grade level standards. I'm really honored to have those of you present on the board to view this as a completed work. We are so proud of the arts here at Marana Cook. area schools. Starting with Ceramics 1. This is an elective that's open to students in grades 10 through 12 without prerequisites. Ceramics 1 can be a student's first connection with the visual arts here at Maranicook. This is the curriculum guide. Now going a little closer, this is a unit map for a couple of Chawan tea bowls. Students must make a set of them. And as it says in the slide, the unit map outlines the key skills and concepts. When we design the learning targets, it's a way to get those key skills and areas of knowledge right up front as we're moving through the unit. So it helps for them to goal set, and it's a delineated, clear way for us to show the path forward. This is an example of one of our rubrics. It is student friendly, it's in student language, whereas the unit map itself has a little bit of teacher jargon in it. This is mostly reflective of what I would be talking about with students. So it's a little bit more in the vernacular. As you can see, there's a couple processes that are aligned with the standard CR1. And so that's a way for us to just check in and make sure that what they're doing matches up with the goals. Here we have an example of student work. As you can see, this is the same project, but various students will handle it differently. There's room for experimentation with different glazes. We stress creativity, obviously design, craftsmanship. So there's a whole bunch of, I guess, professional grade ideas. And what we want to do is show them the continuum of how to approach it. Next, I'll be presenting on behalf of Jeff Stockford and his long-term sub, Casey Spencer, for high school industrial arts. The reason this is included here is because, as I mentioned earlier, students are required to get the one fine art credit to graduate. They can do that in numerous ways. Along with music and visual arts, they can also take industrial arts, and we're lucky to have Tom Ferrero, who's actually bridges both visual arts and industrial arts with the medals program. So as far as the work that's being done, and I know the board members are well aware, we have a CNC router. We've got industry standard equipment. This is going to take us into the unit of Intro to IA. It's a drafting unit, and you can see the standards that are listed there. There's an art standard Crate 1 again, and then there's some engineering and tech standards. And the goal is to kind of meld the two ways of thinking about it. Drafting is a precursor to other units that are more hands-on. I mean, obviously drafting is also in itself hands-on, but before you get to the woodworking, you have to start with ideas and how to capture those. So as with what you had seen earlier in ceramics, we have a similar unit map, and then we have a similar scale for CR1. And the goal is for clarity and ease of purpose. So what they're going to do in this unit is they're going to be creating these designs. They're stressing creativity, right? And with creativity comes the need for originality, different kinds of problem solving. There's more than one way to do that. And we like to see students learning from each other and bouncing ideas off each other. And so that's the goal of our program, is that kind of creative thinking, and obviously the engineering part as well.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Hi, I'm Hope Lord, and I am the middle school art teacher, and I want to talk to you about the curriculum that I've been working on for our middle school students. So in the next slide, you'll see a picture of the curriculum guide along with the 4 core concepts that I'm teaching at the middle school, and these are aligned with the elementary programs too, so kids can build on those skills from elementary to middle school. So the 4 concepts that we're focusing on is drawing, painting, 2D design, and 3D design, 3D sculpture, I mean. And one of the elements or core concepts, the drawing, is the one that I've attached the drawing map, the drawing guide, and all the assignments. So this is what it would look like, the drawing unit. This is one that I've been teaching this year, and what I'm teaching right now actually is called Symbolic Self-Portraits. And in this unit, we are looking at examining symbolism in the presidential portraits that have been created and are on exhibit in the White House. And the kids look at how artists communicate different character traits and themes within a portrait's composition. And then this helps us discuss how the pose and expression kind of communicates something about the subject. And so students have worked on answering some questions to help them decide what their composition is going to be. And so this is the students' answers to the decisions they're going to make and the questions for planning their symbolic self-portrait. And then the next slide, that's a student's self-portrait. So they did one side that was realistic and one side that was symbolic. So part of the assessment for this is students looking at their work and self-assessing it on the two standards, CR2 and CR3, and then answering reflection questions. And I think that's important as an artist to kind of reflect on their work and what decisions you made and whether you got feedback and were able to refine and complete your work. And so students will self-assess on their own rubric and highlight or underline where they feel their work kind of demonstrates how they've met those standards. And then they submit the rubric and the reflection questions and a photo of their artwork. And they submit that in Google Classroom. So that's been very valuable this year, especially with remote students. They're able to do the work at home and then submit it. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Hope.
Thank you.
Hello?
Good evening.
Hello, good evening. Can you guys see me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Nicole Blake. I am the elementary school art teacher for Wayne, Mount Vernon, and Reedfield Elementary Schools. I'm going to be presenting tonight in conjunction with my team member, Rachel Wilson, and her long-term sub, Mary O'Brien, who can't be present with us tonight. I just want to start by saying that I'm really honored to have this opportunity. I'm excited and nervous, and I just can't wait to show you guys everything that we've been working on together as a team. So for our first slide here, this is our curriculum guide. For art, we have curriculum guides for K through 5. As Hope had illustrated before, it does align with all of the standards. We are trying to make a unified curriculum that touches upon the same elements and the same standards from elementary school all the way up through high school so that the students' learning can be continuous and build upon the same ideas and advance their skills that way. So here is a curriculum guide. So it expands and shows our individual units that we're focusing on. We have 4 outlined here: drawing, painting, 2D design, and 3D sculpture. Those are the same ones that are focused on at the higher grade levels as well. We work together to identify these core units, and this allows us to reinforce the key concepts and developmentally appropriate age-engaging projects depending on the grade level themselves. Okay, so we are now on to our unit map that breaks it down into the 2D design in specifics. This is for the 3 through 5 grade level. It shows here the standards that we are trying to connect to, the CREATE standard that conceptualizes the artistic ideas and works, RESPOND to interpret the intent and meaning of the artistic work, big ideas, people throughout the world create and interact with these objects, places, and design and define the shape and enhance the power of their lives. There are some individual project units here that work with these concepts. We have the Mandala unit, the Noton unit, and OptArt unit. There are a couple student examples for you there, and also some key vocabulary if you'd like to look at those more in depth in your own time frame. We're going to move on now This is an individualized lesson for the Noton project. It really focuses a lot on positive negative space, and it just is a more in-depth look on how we would present this to our students. And it also has talk about like the demonstration for the teacher. Oh, sorry, we're moving on. Here are some actual student examples from Marana Cook schools of them being successful in implementing this Noton design. It shows a balance of the different sides of the project with either organic or geometric shapes, depending on the artist's focal point, as well as that contrast of the black and the white working together for this project. The last slide that I have included for you is a self-assessment. This is what I call like a middle grade self-assessment that can be adjusted depending on the grade level that it needs to be used for. I do work with 6 different grade levels. I teach kindergarten through 5th grade, so my self-assessments are very often adjusted depending on the needs of the grade level I'm working with. But the purpose of the self-assessment is for the students themselves to reflect on their work, because it's an important part of art, starting all the way at the elementary school level and going all the way up through adulthood. If you continue to be an artist, to be able to reflect on what was successful and the perception of your artwork for others. And I think it needs to start at the elementary level. And so we want to make sure that we instill those values at an early age. Not really sure if there's anything else I can share with you this evening, but please feel free to email me if you have any questions, if you don't understand, or if you want to talk about it further. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Are there questions for these teachers? Yes.
Mine's kind of a general question. Was this presented to the curriculum committee? Oh, okay. And I do have a second question, if that's okay. Yeah. So I noticed that the high school art, you have about 12 curriculum guides for high school art, but you only have 4 for industrial arts.
So the only IA courses that were shared tonight are ones that have art standards and they can use for art credit. Okay, we're not presenting the whole IA curriculum.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
I mean, I can answer that part, but if you want to talk more to Jeremy about that from the high school, you can too.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Nancy, just a quick question. I noticed on the curriculum guides that they all start at kindergarten. Does pre-K have music and art? So at this time, we don't. We would actually need more teachers in order to bring it down to pre-K at the pre-K level. So, but we need more teachers. So good question.
Yeah, so theirs is integrated in their regular curriculum and the classroom teachers do it. It's a great question.
Sean?
Maybe this was in here and I just didn't catch it, but how many, like at the high school level and the middle school level, how many art classes with graduating requirements are students able to take? And I hear sometimes that it's kind of strict and students are losing out in this area because of these requirements. And what are your thoughts on that?
Jeremy, do you want to address how many art courses some students might take? Or Dan?
Sure. We've got we have a couple of flow charts. So what we try to do, and it could be also that scheduling is sometimes an issue. We do compete, right? So we're looking for kids to always take at least 6 academic courses. That's a given. And then if a student is doing a dual enrollment through Thomas College, they don't always have the ability to take every course they'd like to take because it's a very rigorous expectation. So it could be that might be what you're hearing, is that those college level courses do take up quite a bit of room in schedules. But I think that most of the kids that want to get 1 to 2 courses, and a lot of them are semesters, and that is done to assist in students getting as much of their top choices as possible. So we have done that. We're a small department, myself and Tom Ferrero, offering quite a few courses, and it's sometimes darkroom photography runs every other year. Painting runs determined by the amount of signups. So historically, it's been this way for ever since I've been there. We don't always run painting every year. We don't always run 2 sections of darkroom every year, but we are getting kids in the door, and then we're moving them through. Drawing is popular, fine metals is popular, digital photography are popular. So, we're trying to cut a balance between what we can offer and then where the interest goes. And Dan can speak more about his program.
Yeah, I've only been at the high school for about a year and a half, so I guess I haven't experienced probably in full the fluctuation in numbers in terms of classes. I know I've taught every single one of my 10 courses in the curriculum at least once, except for intermediate guitar. The only real trouble I've noticed in terms of like students getting access to classes is there are students that enroll in concert band, typically their freshman year, and intend to participate in it all 4 years as an academic class. But some students, especially the students that are advanced in AP courses, have to fight in their schedules to make time. And sometimes they just cannot take a band junior or senior year due to the limited amount of time these classes are offered. Concert band is, I don't want to generalize, but it might be the hardest class to schedule in high school because it has the most kids in it. It's about 30 kids on average that you have to adjust the schedule to accommodate. That's what I got.
So can I just follow up? So what I'm hearing is it really depends on what academic track the student wants to take. It's not they're limited. Is that what I'm hearing? Because I have heard this from students saying that their ECRA, it doesn't allow them to take that, and from parents. So
that would kind of my guess. It's not that they're not offered. We offer plenty of them. It's more just a scheduling thing and where students go academically.
Thank you so much, both of you.
Can I just add in real quick? Students have to take 2 semesters of fine arts to graduate as part of the graduation requirements, and there's 7 elective credits that they need for graduation that very often are involved in the fine arts.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Alex.
Also, I just kind of also noticed that under equipment and materials, under equipment and materials, I just also noticed that IA isn't listed as well, so I'm assuming they have all the equipment they need to meet their curriculum requirements.
Also, that list was updated this year, but anything that would be on there for IA would be with respect to these arts courses. This is a proposal for the approval of the arts curriculum and the resources that teachers thought of and some of the things they added this year probably could be covered with regular budgets, but we just left them because at least it's updated, because some of the things that they had when they brought it forward to the curriculum committee last December have been satisfied already. So,
okay. Yeah, I was just
does
curious.
that answer your question?
Yeah. I also saw EdTech 3 and IA. I think that's been in discussion for a while now.
Yes, it has. That was on the original proposal as well. And I think that's not a need currently so much because of all the safety requirements and the limitations on what they can do with equipment and machines, but that when everything's operating and you might have 2 teachers in the space, but there's a lot of kids. If you've got an art class like forging going on and you've also got another IA class, we have limited.
Right. No, I'm happy to see it there, and I'm glad it's in the running. So no, I'm very happy to see it. Yeah. Believe me. So thank you.
Personally, I think the collaboration between arts and IA is one of the really exciting things that's happened at our high school, and I feel like it's been a bonus for the curriculum in both areas. And we're very fortunate to have a great sub this year that's really continuing that tradition and helping us develop that curriculum further. But is that all the questions?
Looks like it. Oh, what, Sean?
With remote learning, I mean, how do you see, I mean, our students are, and it's not your fault, so don't take it that way. I feel are really losing out with band, performing arts type stuff. I mean, not going to debate. I feel we could be doing band in some ways, but that's a debate for a different day. How do you see these requirements fitting in to remote learning? Because I don't see remote learning going away anytime soon, to be honest.
So I'm going to ask, I would like to give Amanda from elementary level a chance to respond to that first, because I think in all of our discussions, I mean, it impacts kids at all levels, but the beginning instrument players in elementary school, I feel like those teachers have some really valid concerns about how we're sending kids up the pipeline.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that is a very valid claim, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Music is the one subject that's kind of gotten the axe more than any other in the pandemic. Like, everyone's been affected, but music, we kind of have, like, not being able to sing in the classroom, not being able to play wind instruments. It's kind of like trying to teach a kid to read without teaching them the alphabet. It's like, nope, you can't learn the letters, but you're going to have to read anyways. But we have been very good about adapting our curriculum. Like, Dory Tripp and I have really worked hard. We've done a lot of great PowerPoint presentations. And one thing that I've been trying to say this entire year to my kids and myself is that even if something's different, that doesn't mean it's bad. So, like, for grades 3 through 5, we focused a lot on composition, and we've focused a lot on music literacy and, like, music history and how music affects our worldview. In K through 2, we are doing a lot of performing, but we're focusing more on rhythm and movement. And we're doing a lot of what's called body percussion, where you, like, make sounds either with, like, clapping or patting or using your body to demonstrate. But, like, this year, I've been very lucky. Like, my first grade students, I've focused a lot on rhythm with them, and they're reading rhythms and music that normally would not happen. But because sometimes we're not able to focus on other areas that we normally would, this year other areas are starting to excel too. So I think it's still going to be manageable with remote learning. It's not going to be the same as normal. Unfortunately, it is what it is. Like, elementary does not have any band this year because that is not safe to do currently. But we are adapting, and I am glad to say that my students are not missing out on music this year.
Thank you.
I'd like to chime in as well to give some perspective of the high school. Amanda is absolutely right in stating that music literacy and other aspects of our curriculum are definitely the name of the game right now. It helps so much to be able to focus on these topics that we teach simultaneously but don't really have time to get into deep dives with to meet the needs of our curriculum. I know at the high school, in the slideshow presentation, I talked about smart music. That's been really awesome for our band students and our jazz band students to be able to listen to their own recordings, to analyze their work and just gain a better understanding of their ability to perform and what they need to improve in. That's all being done remotely. In person, we still are performing. I don't know if any of the school board members saw, but right after Christmas, it took me a while to get the videos together. We got posted to the high school website 2 videos of Christmas carols that were performed by concert band students using mallet percussion. We kind of just dove in, and I said, hey, you played saxophone. Guess what? Now you're playing the marimba. You're going to give it a shot. And students were able to learn how to apply the same set of music skills they had on their specific instrument on others, and notice how, hey, it's really not that difficult in terms of the compatibility of some of these skills with other instruments. I'm currently working on a pop arrangement of a song that we worked on for the second half of our quarter. So in person, we are performing. The quarter just ended, so I won't see them again until April. But even though it's not traditional, we're still getting something through.
Thank you. And thank you for your creativity.
thank you all to all the teachers and thank you to Diane. Nice zooming there.
Okay,
Thank you all for supporting the arts.
thank you.
Thank you.
Citizens' comments.
Dr. Levac, can you just take a peek on the clipboard behind you to see if there's anybody written for comments? There's none there? Okay. And let's give Diane just a second to check if there's anyone online. Looks like we're good.
Moving on. Additions to the agenda.
I had something that I think would fit now. And that fits in what was mentioned by one of the student presenters that this week is the National School Counselors Week or School Counseling Week. And I thought I'd like to move or suggest that the board recognize the tremendous impact school counselors can have in helping the students achieve success, plan for their future, which comes right from their website, but also to protect our students all the time, but even more in this extra serious and tense time that we're in now.
I totally agree.
Should that be a motion or if so, I make that motion.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Thank you, David.
Roll call.
Oh, hold on just a sec. I gotta. Right. All right. Oh, okay. Sorry. Kim.
Yes.
Wendy.
Yes.
Dane.
Yes.
Kathy. Yes. Melissa.
Yes.
Alex.
Yes.
Patty.
Yes.
Rebecca.
Yes.
Betty.
Yes.
Sean.
Yes.
Gary.
Yes.
And David.
Yes.
And it passes unanimously. Perfect.
Okay, you were making, say something about the reports. Not gonna-
Yep. So under the reports, staff association, I'd like to introduce Mary Ellen Tracy, who is one of the team teachers here at the middle school. And with her tonight is Dr. Sewell, who is actually providing services to our health centers. So I'd like to invite them. They're going to speak during association time at this point.
Thank you very much. As Superintendent Charette said, I'm Mary Ellen Tracy. I teach here at the Royal River team, grades 6 through 8, all subjects. I'm also here this evening as the head of the middle school crisis team, the coordinator of the Maranacook Area Food Pantry, a master advisor, a teacher mentor, and a veteran teacher of 38 years. I want to share my thoughts with you about our current situation in the pandemic. I didn't sign up for this. None of us did. As educators, we were trained to work in person with children. We were trained to look them in the eye so that they know we respect and care about them personally. We were trained to read their faces to know if they were engaged, sad, distracted, intimidated, frustrated, or angry. We were not trained to sit and stare at a screen all day. I just needed you to hear this from me, that none of us were trained to do this, and teachers don't like to be remote either. Last spring, we were thrust into completely uncharted territory. We had to figure out how to keep our students going, learning, growing, and we had no warning. We worked hard to move our lessons and assignments online and to try to make them engaging and meaningful. It was the best we could do in a really difficult situation. Throughout the summer, our pillar groups met with one main focus: to get as many students back in school as much as possible in person, within the limits of the CDC guidelines and the Department of Education standards of operation. Personally, I am high risk category myself. I had many reservations about coming back full in-person schooling, but we did it. At the middle school, we now safely offer 100% in-person teaching 4 days a week. That being said, on some of those days, students sit at their desk in one classroom facing forward for more than 3 hours on some days. And teachers are with students for more than 5 hours each day without a break. This is really hard on students. And I think if you looked at your surveys, you saw that over 80% of the students 6-12 do not want to come back to school in person on Wednesdays for this reason. And over 55% of your elementary students do not as well. And if you haven't done so already, I would suggest you read some of the comments, especially from the elementary kids, about how they need a break. You talk about the guidance, the importance of our guidance people. Kids need a break. There's a lot of stress. We've had only 3 quarantine periods so far this year, which is so much better than we imagined. And there's been no transmission of the virus in our RSU 38 schools. This all sounds great. However, adding more time in the building means an increased risk of exposure and/or transmission for all building occupants. It also eliminates the time our custodial staff currently has to deep clean the building midweek. What we're doing is working, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Some of you have stated that you believe that if sports like basketball can happen, why can't kids be more in person? There's a significant difference between 20 people who voluntarily participate in an activity in a large, well-ventilated gymnasium versus 300 people or more who are required to be in a school building and who have to be moved from place to place, socially distanced, occupy small classrooms, and eat together. The CDC guidelines and the DOE standard operating procedures are clear about what needs to be done to have in-person school, and they need to be followed to keep us all safe. I trust the medical professionals to guide us well through these difficult times. There's one piece I haven't mentioned yet. We're not just educators, we're parents, children, brothers, and sisters. We too have responsibilities beyond school, and as all you do, we have a responsibility to our families and to do our utmost not to bring this virus home. My husband and I care for his 84-year-old father. Having a safe work environment means that Jeff and I can do his laundry, give him haircuts, do his errands, and get his groceries, making it possible for him to stay home and safe from infection. I believe you're already aware that extending the existing in-person school days just won't work. We're physically not able to do this and meet the CDC guidelines or the DOE standard operating procedures and fulfill contractual obligations. In regard to adding academic time on Wednesdays, at the middle school, we currently have 160 students remotely involved in 23 different clubs. These are currently meeting virtually on Wednesdays, which allow our at-home learners and in-person learners from across all the cohorts to participate in meaningful activities together. Each of these clubs has a teacher facilitator, most of whom are voluntary. These would no longer be able to meet if we were full-time in-person 5 days a week. Students would lose this social time with their peers, which is really important at the middle level. Our foreign language teachers are offering extended learning activities to 14 of our advanced language students on Wednesday afternoons, which will allow them to test into year 2 of their chosen language in high school. This opportunity would no longer be able to happen if we added in-person instruction on Wednesdays. All professional development time that we would have in a normal year has been replaced by our remote Wednesdays. This was done to keep us safe, to maximize academic support to our remote learners, to maximize opportunities to develop support systems for all students, and to learn how to become better at remote teaching so that students have rich academic activities that they can engage in from home. If we add in-person academic time on Wednesdays, teacher meetings with response to intervention specialists and special ed staff which are crucial to the support of our highest need students, would be seriously impacted, as there would be very little time for these meetings to happen. We would have to somehow find other time to have grade level advisor meetings where we check in on how to support students' social and emotional needs, and restorative practice meetings where we learn skills to help support students' behavioral needs. Content area curriculum meetings, which have been crucial this year in helping us adapt our curricula to meet the needs to create remote and in-home learning lessons, would no longer be able to happen in any regular way. We have many support systems in place for at-risk students. We have a silent mentor document developed by the entire staff, which allows us to pinpoint students who might be marginalized or are in extra need of support from a caring adult. Through this process, we've been reaching out to families and trying to support those identified or who are struggling, and others. Because of these efforts in a school of 282 students, we've had only 5 truancy cases, all among at-home learners. Of these cases, 1 did not understand the process, the attendance process for at-home learning, and that case was resolved. The other families are working with in-district and/or out-of-district support systems to help them as they work to resolve the barriers to attending school. We need time to be able to confer with specialists and parents to create individualized plans to meet the needs of these students. As you can see, the middle school staff has done an enormous amount already to meet the needs of all students in this very difficult time. On Wednesdays, we have provided academic support to both at-home and in-person students. We provided many opportunities for students to virtually connect with one another, essential meetings to support students, and professional development to support staff. The benefits of adding an in-person day on Wednesdays do not outweigh the negative impact associated with losing all of these supports for our students. As of last Thursday's update from the DOE, there have been 727 COVID cases across the state in schools in the last 30 days. According to the Maine CDC this morning, there were 27 deaths yesterday. And according to Dr. Fauci in the US CDC, there's unlikely to be any way to vaccinate children under 16 until late spring or early summer. We feel strongly that it does not make sense to add additional in-person academic time until the risk of infection is lowered to the point that we no longer have to follow the CDC guidelines and the DOE standard operating procedures for schools. Our administrators feel strongly that our current schedule is only working because our staff is putting in the utmost effort to support students during these difficult times. Teachers want to be with their students in person, but cannot do more without giving up the significant supports we already have in place for them, and without sacrificing their own health and well-being and risking that of their families. Thank you. Dr. Sid Sewall is here with me, and he has a few words to say, but also would love to help answer any questions you might have about vaccinations and all of the craziness that's going on right now.
How are you? Thank you for having me. I'm Dr. Sewall. I'm a pediatrician, mostly in Augusta since 1982, though I did cover for the local pediatric practice for decades. Dr. Richardson, Dr. Mansfield, Dr. Crowley was my partner for a long time. Currently working at the residency in Augusta with family practice residents, trying to teach them pediatrics, and also at this health center, although very, very part-time. So I really don't have any standing to tell you how to make these decisions. All I can tell you is from a health point of view, every interaction we have with each other has some risk. That's the problem. The masks help some, the distancing helps some. We're probably exposed to COVID all the time when we go to Hannaford's, and some of us get it and some of us don't. And the success that you've had in mitigating any outbreaks in this environment has been really outstanding. Maine in general, we've been really lucky. The number of cases in Maine since the whole epidemic started has been about 2,000. We just broke that record, I think, last week. The unfortunate thing about that statistics, though, is in the last 3 or 4 weeks, that number increased by 25%. So although the numbers are starting to decline now, we're not out of the woods. We're still way above, in terms of community spread, where things were back in the fall when you opened the school. And as a lot of you may have heard on various media outlets, what happens in schools reflects what's going on in the community. That's where the cases come from. You've been incredibly successful in keeping spread within the schools from not happening. The kids that get it usually get it at home from relatives or their own families. And then hopefully, because of the hard work of the school nurses, they end up maintaining their quarantining and not bringing it back in the classroom. Besides coming here a couple days a week, I do a Zoom meeting with the school nurses in the general region for about half hour on Fridays. And I'll tell you, they are stressed. The level of cases, even though in the fall things were kind of low key, and then there was this kind of surge. The level of cases they had to investigate and track down the families increased, and some of them were like in tears. It's a very stressful job. They feel really responsible for keeping your schools safe. And they're partly responsible for doing it, but really who's responsible are the general families that bring their kids to school, that try to keep themselves from getting exposed and thereby exposing their kids. So the success that you've had is not just related to their efforts, although partly related. It's also due to the community spirit that you have and the morale that you're trying to maintain despite all these hardships. What I learned tonight is how incredibly creative your teachers are and how hard they're working and how maybe we'll actually improve education when this is all over by merging what you've learned in this horrible epidemic period with more in-person experiences too, because it's amazing what they've done. I wish I could take that music class. So any case, that's all I really have to say, but any questions? Yeah.
Go ahead, Sean.
I have a question. I think it'd probably be more for you. I know you talked about in-person learning, but has the association taken any position on going full remote, like a full remote day, like a 5-hour full remote day? Has the staff association taken any position on that on Wednesdays?
I actually don't know. I'm here as a guest of the association, so.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry, I guess I misunderstood. I thought you were speaking on their behalf.
I'm speaking on the behalf of the middle school teachers.
So there's been no.
But also the crisis team. So I have a very sort of a medical focus, but also I kind of give you the teacher perspective too. So I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, thank you.
One thing that Mary Ellen mentioned was what I would really agree with is you're doing so great. It's probably not the right time to jump off a winning horse. There's still a lot of uncertainties. You read the medical literature, and some people are predicting that with the vaccine, by the summer we'll be out of the woods. Other people are saying that the new variants are going to make it much more difficult for the vaccines to prevent community spread, and it's going to be a much longer period of time. And who knows what to believe. But these new variants are somewhat worrisome. So,
Thank you. Okay.
Because our agenda is really packed tonight, I didn't ask the principals to prepare anything, but certainly if you have any questions for them, they're certainly here and available to answer any questions that might have come up in their reports. Gary.
Go ahead, Sean.
I have one, and I meant to email this, and I realized the email was sitting in my email, so my apologies. So I'm not trying to put anyone on the spot. I'm not expecting an answer, but I saw, Mrs. Levesque, in your schedule for remote learning, and it seems like the middle school, if my math is right, has gone remote more than anybody. And I've heard from some parents, and I'm asking the question because I want the facts, that some teachers, when they've gone full remote, aren't teaching on those remote days. And do they run that by you, or how does that work? And again, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I want to ask the question. Actually got another call about that today on my way here.
So they're expected to be teaching on those remote days. Sometimes it's an asynchronous class, so the class might be posted on Google Classroom, and I don't know if that's what they're referencing, but I think what's best if you can send me an email, because the expectation, and from what I've heard, is that it's happening. And they're expected, like we have those schedules that are pretty specific to what they're supposed to be doing at each time, at each hour. So.
Oh, appreciate that.
Any other questions for the principals or Dr. Harriman or Mr. Meserve?
Moving on. Go ahead, Patty.
Okay, sorry. On that particular question, do the parents, if they feel that what they told you, Sean, is happening, should they call the principal? What is the appropriate procedure if they have a concern?
That's where I directed them to call, but I said I'd also bring it up.
Yeah.
I would say when there has been things, I have gotten some emails and sometimes it's a miscommunication from the student or sometimes it's they weren't doing, there was something else. There was another layer to it. So I would definitely ask them to call me or send me an email and we'll dig into it and figure out what's going on.
Patty?
I was just curious, Mary Ellen just said that at the middle school let me just ask the question. So I wonder this for each school, roughly, like totally get this, don't go away, don't go away. Don't be nervous. Well, could you gauge how many kids of all of the students who are fully remote learners at the middle school, which if I remember correctly, is it like around 25?
Yeah, I think there's 26 right now.
26. Yeah. How many of those students are truant or not able to be, like not doing anything or not ever showing up or anything? Just curious.
Of our 26, that's the only group of kids that are remote. So there's 5 right now, I believe, and one of them, if it were up to me, I would say this person shouldn't count because it was really not understanding technology and technology was not part of that family's household prior to it, but we caught it right in the beginning. It's either in September or October. Like it was a quick catch. And since then that student, I happen to have that student in my class and the students doing awesome. The other ones, one of them has now returned to school, which has been I think it's hard, but was the right move. But that is where there's been disengagement. And then there's been other kids. We have had quite a bit of movement from from at-home learning to in-person. And sometimes what it is Mary Ellen had mentioned it, is those clubs. Because some of those kids really miss the social aspect and they were the ones that were in like 6 clubs and they were trying to go to everything. It was just because they were they needed something else. So we're trying to get them back. It's a pretty seamless process at the middle school to get them back because they have a schedule that they follow regardless. So it's really more of okay, we're ready and we can take them in.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Are the rest of the administrators willing to just sort of say super roughly of the remote learners in your building, like how many are making 0 contact with school people right now or like not doing anything? Is that putting people on the spot too much? If it is, you can tell me later. I'm just curious, when Mary Ellen just said that, it just made me wonder how many students in our district.
Sure, we have, I think it's after today, I think we have over 80 full-time remote students. And, rough ballpark, I could find it out in a few minutes, but I would say about 10 of those kids are truant, fall into the truant area.
Thank you. You can tell me later too, Janet, if it's I'm not, just like a rough ballpark. I'm just curious, again, like we've talked about this before, but I just wonder if.
So I have one student and I've worked with superintendent and I and the family and we're working on that.
So none really. One or none.
Go ahead, Kathy.
So I'm not sure, Jay, if you can answer this question or not, but I'm just curious to know how these numbers of truancies for this year compare to last year or a normal year, because I'm looking at 28 for the high school, which to me seems very high.
If you guys will go to page 20, I'll actually give you updated numbers for January because it's changed once we got through January here. So at the elementary, we had remember when you see this chart, each month it's the new truancies that we're recording. So in January, we had 2 more elementary school students. That brings the total to 4. Of that 4, all of those students were at-home supported learners that we worked with to be able to get to a good place. In the middle school, we had only 1 additional one, so that brings them up to 5. And again, as has been said many times here tonight, it's actually 5 out of 5 that are remote. And then at the high school, we actually only had 2 new additional ones, which was really good, but that brings that number to 30, and 21 out of 30 of those students were actually remote students. So the way this compares to last year, and again, I'm ballparking a little bit, the elementary school is higher than it usually is. The middle school, and Kristen, you correct me if I'm wrong, it kind of runs right around there for the middle school. And at the high school, that is definitely a higher number than usual at the high school, without a doubt, when you're looking at 30 there. I have been involved with, what's really good is I give a lot of credit to everyone. They send out the truancies. The way that we've been dealing with a lot of this is truancies, letters. They have meetings. If we don't get contact, then it rises to my level. I've been involved in 5 different truancy meetings, and we've been able to get plans in place for those students going forward. But it's a continual thing. Truancy across all of the grade levels is something that's like an ongoing thing that they constantly have to work through. Hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. Thank you. I just had one more clarification. So if
Sure.
I'm looking at the high school in December, it's 13. Are those 13 still included? So they're still truant?
No, they're not. We have plans in place for them now.
Okay.
So that's a good question. Like, of that 30 that's there, all of those kids now have plans in place. Either they've risen to my level or they've worked it through with the principals and or advisors. And
So are they participating in school now? Is that there's a plan and then there's an action that goes along with the plan?
And I know they give me updates on those monthly based on how plans are progressing. And usually it's very, very quick.
Okay, thank you.
It's working, it's not working. Right now it's working, knock on wood. So I think Patty had a.
Well, I was just thinking that maybe you saw this story too. I heard a story on the news about 2 schools, Dirigo and Oxford Hills, both of whom are using some of the COVID relief funds that they've got to find creative ways to meet, then get a hold of and meet and connect with these kids. It's just a handful of kids in our whole district, which is which is pretty amazing. And I think it speaks to how awesome all of the staff and administrators have been about, and school counselors have been about connecting. But this story was about how they used funds to connect with kids. Like, for example, had somebody like in the role similar to what Amy Tucker was doing, but more hours at every grade level, who could go to a house and do a home visit with somebody else, or pick up a student and drive around in the car and have an hour of school in the car, like all different creative things. And I was thinking about, it sounds like we might get some more COVID relief sometime.
So we have a list started of all of those kind of ideas, and that is one of the ideas on the list.
Is it already on the list?
Yeah.
Yes, it's already on the list?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I was going to ask, to get on the list.
Go ahead, Sean.
Where are those funds at? I know the department was in the process of giving them out, 'cause I had a conversation with.
So we've got the application is out. We received a little over 666,000. We've got to write our grant and our ideas. So that's what I'm doing, is soliciting ideas right now. And there's a bunch of really good ones that are coming across, similar to what Patty talked about. We also looked at, I've got the phys ed teachers looking at some idea. They got ideas. They're throwing ideas at me almost daily right now. With that, we've also talked about positions for support for students who need the extra support, those kinds of things. So we're really trying to make sure that the money this time gets funneled into directly helping students in a capacity. So, but we've got a nice chunk of money to work with for sure. The application opened last Friday, and that's why we're going to whittle our list down and get kind of put it together. And we have a little bit more time, which is really nice, so we can be a little bit more thoughtful and strategic about how we're using the money. So.
Go ahead, David.
On that, you folks know better where we need to use it most. So I lean on that. But just as those questions came up, there's also the bus drivers. Whether there's anything more we can do about our busing situation with the help of those funds.
Moving on.
So that takes us up to our committee reports.
So the only one that we had these are
upcoming ones. Yep. So,
and we have a first policy read.
yes.
That's for you.
For JJE, which is student fundraising activities, we had a really good meeting around that, had a lot of input, and there's only, there's not huge changes to that, but there were a few things that you guys will want to check that out and read carefully, just so that if you have any questions, please reach out to myself or anybody on the policy committee for that.
Do we want to hear from the curriculum committee that met?
That would be great.
Well, you know what? It actually isn't me. I'm happy to say.
I don't mind talking
It
about
was
it.
somebody else. Somebody else was
I
the
don't
person
mind.
from the
I'll do it.
curriculum committee because I was.
So
told-
so the curriculum committee met last week, one of those days.
Last week,
There was so many
yeah.
meetings last week. Anyway, we had the whole presentation from the VPA group that you just saw, and it was really, it was actually a little bit more detailed. It was incredible. What they're doing is just really awesome. The other piece of that was we had an update from the K through 5 math curriculum from the math coach, and she just explained the process that they've been going through to look at new programs that are current programs or programs that will support our curriculum. And right now we're in the process. We've got 4 that we're looking at, and we're using a really detailed evaluation tool to look at all of the programs. And then when we've finished with that particular piece of the process, then we'll look at maybe whittling them down to 1 or 2 and continue to look at them. And we're taking the feedback from the staff and looking at how these programs meet the feedback from the staff. So it's a pretty intense process that they're going through. So maybe by the end of this year, there might be a recommendation for a program to move forward with, but maybe not. So they're working really hard. That group of people is amazing, the work that they put into this during this time especially. I think that's it.
That was it, yeah.
We just also talked about the next meeting, thinking further about testing and what the updates are from the state with changes to state testing and stuff like that. Right?
Yep, it's supposed to come up. And the WIA is supposed to be done here shortly.
Yep. Sounds good. And again, just so everyone knows, the revised policy is on page 24 of your packet, with page 27 being the current policy. So if you do want to do any kind of comparison, just so that you know what you're looking at when you're flipping through there. But certainly reach out with any questions. Again, that policy meeting was a really good one. We had a lot of people there. PTOs came, ABS was there. A representative from them, Kristen and Dwayne and Brant were there. So it was a really good policy meeting to talk through some of what we needed to talk through for that night.
I move to approve the minutes of January 20th, 2021.
Second.
Any discussion? Take a vote.
Kim?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
Dane?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Betty,
Abstain.
Sean,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
and David.
Yes.
Good. One abstention and 11 yeses. Thank you.
I move to accept the donations.
Second.
Any discussion? Take a vote.
Kim,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yes.
Dane,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
and David.
Yes.
Thank you. Unanimous.
I move to approve the visual and performing arts curriculum.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Kim,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yes.
Dane,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes, and thank you for all the hard work of everyone on that committee.
Sean,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
and David.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
I move to accept the teacher resignation effective June 30th, 2021, high school Spanish teacher Kelly Frey with regret.
Second.
Any discussion?
Gary?
Oh.
If I could just speak. So I had Kelly Fry during my time period, and actually I think also with Missy's as well. And I just want to thank Kelly for her years of service. Though I didn't take Spanish, many of my classmates did, and they truly loved her class, especially when they went to Spain a couple times. So I just want to thank Kelly for her years of service. Also, Kaden Brown says hello. Anyways, thank you.
Go ahead, Kathy.
I worked with Kelly for quite a few years, and I just want to say that I know that all good things must come to an end. And I'm very happy that she's going to go on to the next phase in her life. But I felt so sad and choked up when I read her letter. And it's going to leave a huge hole at the high school. And I just want her to know how much she's really going to be missed and the wonderful job that she did over the years. So thank you, Kelly.
And again, just so everybody knows, that is in your folders, it's 7D. So in case you missed it, just that's where her letter is.
Jay,
Yes.
can I just say, Kelly Fry was my advisor. My first year at Marina Cook was her first year at Marina Cook. So it's really, I can't imagine the school without her there. And I'm glad she's just down the road from me.
Roll call.
All right. Kim,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yes.
Dane,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Melissa,
Unfortunately, yes.
Alex,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes, with huge sadness.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
and David.
Yes.
Carries unanimously.
I move to approve policy EEA, student transportation services.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Oh, okay. Kim,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yes.
Dane,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
and David.
Yes.
And it passes unanimously.
I move to approve policy KCD, gift donations to the schools.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Kim,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yes.
Dane,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
and David.
Yes.
And again, passes unanimously.
I move to approve policy KJA, use of school name and logo.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Kim,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yes.
Dane,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
and David.
Yes.
And again, passes unanimously.
Okay, we're up to you.
Okay, so I'm actually going to jump up there because we do have a little bit of a presentation for everyone. Hold on, I'm just going to make sure I've got everything with me. Sorry, too many things to grab. There we go. So here we are again to talk about in-person learning. So we wanted to put some information together for you guys so that you can have as much as possible a complete picture. And I know you've heard from other people here tonight, but the administrative team and I really worked on this, started working on it last week, and then kind of pulled it all together today. So as we go through, I know there's a lot to think about. And there's a lot, I'm going to try to get through a lot for you guys. So please, if you think of a question, jot it down, because I've got the administrators here as well to be able to address and answer any of the questions that come forward as we go through this. So having said all of that, teaching and learning during a pandemic, we'll start with I guess a quote, for lack of a better way to say this. And as you can see right there, it says, although this is an incredibly challenging time, it presents unanticipated opportunities that could have a positive effect on student confidence and motivation. The more we can learn to appreciate and motivate ourselves to rise to the occasion and relish the challenges, the greater the possibility that we can be models who can influence our students. So I thought that was a really nice quote and a way to start as we go forward. So the next slide that I've got for you guys, it's about defining synchronous and asynchronous, because those words get thrown around a lot. And I don't know as we've done a great job communicating kind of what our vision of that is and how it kind of works. So we put together this little Venn diagram so that you can see kind of the two places and where those two things intersect. So when we define synchronous versus asynchronous communication or instruction, there are benefits and challenges to both. Educators have had to find ways to leverage those two forms of instruction and to be intentional about teaching students how to use them. So examples such as shared documents and video chats have elements that are both synchronous and asynchronous, where shared documents can happen in real time, but a permanent record of the work is created. Video chats can happen in real time, but can also be recorded and made available at a time when students are able to use them. So just wanted to kind of lay that foundation out there of what we've been thinking of going forward here. So when we were talking about how students access instruction remotely versus in person, there are many things that overlap. Students, whether they are in the classroom this year or learning from outside of the school building, have opportunities to engage in synchronous and asynchronous elements of lessons. Many students access their schoolwork through one of our learning management platforms, regardless of their location, and all students should have an opportunity to collaborate with their peers. The biggest difference is the manner in which students receive support from their teachers in the moment as they learn. So in our district, going to the next slide, and I'm moving really fast because I don't want to get too bogged down. So in our district, we've committed to using Seesaw K through 5 or kindergarten through 5th grade and Google Classrooms in grades 6 through 12. Students in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade are learning how to use Google Classroom as well. Even though it's not a primary option, they are learning to use it in bits and pieces. Teachers rely heavily on these systems to assign work to students, communicate with students and families, and to provide feedback to students on their progress, whether they are in person or working remotely. So we put these slides together to talk about the demands of of lesson planning, kindergarten through 12th grade. So instructional loss during the school year 1920 has increased the need for accelerated learning. This isn't something you guys haven't heard us say before. This has resulted in an increased need for teachers to become more knowledgeable than ever of their content, as well as expectations of rigor from the grade before them. A great deal of planning time has been spent in collaborative teams on just that one concept alone. Teachers have spent a great deal of time learning about and using curricular resources for prioritizing lessons, including planning guides and formative assessments. They have spent time in RTI teams, professional learning communities, and grade level teams looking at data to determine how to support students who are struggling across grade level content. Teachers, coaches, and administrators have spent time meeting to reevaluate the pace, the sequence, and the priorities within content areas to ensure that we have a balance between making up for lost time from last spring, being realistic in regards to current instructional time and grade level expectations. This level of planning impacts everything from the day-to-day goings on in the classroom to the year-long scope and sequence for grades and classes. In the different teaching and learning contexts that we found ourselves in this year, teachers are having to plan for different types of instructional delivery, more now so than ever before. Again, you've heard this. The norms and routines that we've relied upon in the past have needed to be tweaked, updated, or altogether replaced as we work with students in socially distanced, hybrid, or remote classrooms. Everything from acceptable ways to use the chat features to how and when to access Google Classroom and how to log in for attendance have to be taught and sometimes even retaught. Teachers have worked with intensity this year on ways to curate the content in ways that can be accessed by their students. Most of our students need to be able to, need to be able to access content digitally in the event that they are working remotely, and making this available to students with high degree of quality takes a lot of time. Video lessons are put into Edpuzzle. Creation of Seesaw lessons at the elementary grades, Desmos and Peer Deck are just a few of the ways that teachers are using technology to make content available to students. Teachers have been working to create authentic learning and practice experience for students, with many of the ways that we have done this in the past are no longer available. For example, centers is something in the K-5 level that has had to be totally redesigned. Student collaboration has been a very highly valued part of students' experience at Maranacook, and this has had to be rethought and redesigned for our current context. Students are collaborating on digital platforms or at a safe distance, and all of this takes careful thought and planning. There are many ways that teachers engage or support engagement in feedback during and after learning. The learning management that we use allows teachers to provide feedback directly to students with a great deal of frequency, but it has been a lot for teachers to stay on top of, and a shift in many ways from how many have given feedback in the past. Teachers still rely, and you heard this tonight, on face-to-face opportunities to provide feedback, including in the classroom, through Zoom meetings during class time, and during office hours or additional help sessions. Students have opportunities to give feedback through email and face-to-face during those same, during those same opportunities. This part of feedback loop has created a great deal of additional email for teachers as they work to stay on top of communication with their students. Teachers have been working to incorporate opportunities for students to provide each other feedback in new ways, including through virtual platforms as they work in collaborative groups through Google Docs and face-to-face. So staff members at all levels are currently working on plans for upcoming parent informational nights appropriate for their grade level. This year requires a reinvention of those traditional practices as we move into a virtual setting. Regular newsletters have been a practice in our district. Teachers and interventionists have worked to ensure that these are places where parents can continue to gain insight into their students' learning environment and learn more about how they help their students at home. Year-long, staff at all levels have been working to help parents understand how to navigate new virtual platforms and to understand the daily expectations, and to understand, for those students, whether they are attending school remotely or in person. So the next thing we'll just very briefly talk about, and I'm not going to read each of these to you, but I wanted you guys to see some of the things that are happening at the various levels of professional development going forward. The science of learning is one that has been really important at the high school. Common planning time, which has been used to support students within departments by discussing lessons, curriculum, and support. Advisor grade levels used to support students academically as well as their social emotional needs. Freshman Academy, which meets weekly with 9th grade teachers to review student data. RTI meetings. RTI meetings are weekly with teachers to review, again, student data and to plan the supports that they need. The PLCs have focused on discourse, engagement, social emotional learning, and remote learning applications. They've had a book study on the self-driven child. We have had technology applications from Google Classroom to Zoom to Edpuzzle to Nearpod are just some of those that we use. Intentional design for remote learning, and this one was done actually asynchronously. They could move through it on their own, module 1 and 2. We just purchased the distance learning playbook, K-12 across the district. And then there's been other things like advisory training, which is identifying every student should have a trusted adult that they can talk to. We've also, and you guys have seen a little bit of this, Dr. Conway has been working on Portrait of a Graduate as well, and there's actually 4 phases to that. So you have actually only seen part of that up to this point. Again, some of the things that are up there, and I think I'm either behind you or ahead of you right now. I am, sorry, behind you. Middle school, there we go. So again, PLCs, weekly staff meetings, team planning time, which is used to support the students. Because again, the middle school is all on when the students are here. Nobody has any planning time while the students are in session at the middle school. So their team planning time is really, really important for them. Advisor grade level meetings used to support students academically, social emotional learning. I mentioned RTI. The middle school has restorative practices. And this is a professional practice. They meet in groups and they use the restorative practice handbook to help work on behavioral expectations and the climate of the school. The innovative inside the box book studies, these groups meet monthly and it helps readers create purposeful learning opportunities for all students. The books help to empower educators to create opportunities that will benefit each student. And again, still at the middle school, using the science of learning to evaluate how we teach and learn. Again, this is an asynchronous. They're working on module 1, intentional design for remote learning. Again, that's asynchronous, but they're working on module 1 and 2, distance learning playbook, and then engagement and instruction applications for staff such as Go Guardian and Silent Mentor. And they are also involved in Portrait of a Graduate. So the elementary schools, they've had to learn those online platforms of Seesaw, Zoom, Loom, and Jamboard. And I give them a lot of credit because they were probably the one group that walked in with the least amount of technology training going forward. So we really had to focus on how to use those. So the flipped classroom is part of that. They've been working with illustrative math, and they've been working on, you guys have heard this talked about before, the second step social emotional learning curriculum. They've been practicing with grade level partners on how to conduct remote learning sessions through Zoom. They've been developing virtual classrooms for remote learning, and they've been working on remote schedules, providing engagement activities and feedback to students using Seesaw. And also, oops, am I ahead again? Working with grade level partners on curriculum development again, and that has been really, really important along with data review. Developing remote learning kits, which is materials and manipulatives to use at home, and then remote guided reading and or literacy footprints, which is a digital reader going forward. So I just wanted to give you a quick snapshot of what it looked like with professional development going forward. So what does school look like? So let's look real quickly at the numbers so that we have a good frame of reference. So at the elementary school, here are your numbers broken down by school, how many students are in person, how many students are remote, and how many students are homeschooled. Please remember that homeschooled, those are people that are kind of outside our purview at this point. But if you'll notice, we have about 52 students who are at home supported learners, and that's the group that Amy Tucker and a couple of our ed techs have been working with specifically for that. But just wanted to give you an idea of what the numbers look like going across here. And I apologize if I'm in the way here. All right. And then, and I know this is really hard to see, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on it. So what does the schedule, the hybrid schedule look like? And what does the remote schedule kind of look like? And we will share this with you guys so you can dig down into this a little bit further, but you can see that the day is broken out, whether it's in person, on the various days, including specials and what it looks like for specials going across there as well. At the middle school, they completely changed their schedule this year to allow for classrooms to be spaced out appropriately. The middle school divided into 5 teams, 4 of which have approximately 70 students in them, with the other, and the other with 11, and that's the Sebago alternative team. Each of the 4 larger teams have students divided into 6 cohorts with 10 to 14 students in a cohort. Our at-home learners are also included in a cohort so they can easily transition to or from in-person learning. Due to the schedule, all staff are working directly with students from 8 a.m. until student dismissal, which starts at 12:45 at the middle school. And again, that's really hard to read and that's small. So when we share it with you, you can kind of dig a little bit further into it. So hold on. So at the high school, you can see what their schedule looks like. Remember, they're working on a model where you have an A cohort, a B cohort. A comes on Monday and Thursday. B comes on Tuesday and Friday. Cohort C is the remote cohort, and you can see that number 77. As Dr. Conway mentioned, it looks like it's going to grow a little bit. And then cohort D, we've got 65 students who are actually coming 4 days a week right now at the high school. So I wanted to kind of point that out to you as you're looking at that, and you can see what their schedule looks like. They start with advisee time, work through their 4 classes with a lunch period built in there, and then dismissal at 1:07 at the high school. Sorry about that. So then I'd like to share with you guys the Wednesday expectations across the different levels. Let's start with the elementary school, and that's a link, so it'll take just a second for it to come up. Oops, sorry, I have to get it up on my screen as well. I apologize. So the original start with Wednesdays was supposed to be a blend of online learning and paper pencil instruction. This comes directly from our pillar document that Mr. Boston worked with a large group of teachers during the summer to put this together. When students aren't in front of us, they work off an established schedule to be posted daily on Seesaw, and they're working remotely, and they follow the schedule for independent work, student work, opportunities for questions, and feedback will be provided during teacher office hours. All right, let me go backwards. We'll pull up the middle school very quickly. So all work's posted in Google Classroom. They have approximately 40 minutes of work time per period. They scroll through kind of a prep, started at 7:30 when they're on Wednesday, going till 8:20, where they're checking in and getting ready for the day. They work through their Black Day assignments and their Gold Day assignments, along with a lunch period. And then at the end of the day, they're again doing a check-in using email and Google Classroom to do that as well. And then the high school. So the high school starts with their department common planning time meeting at 7:45. From 8:30 to 1, students have access to, again, their Google Classroom, complete assignments the teachers have posted. And they also have office hours. But note on here, the high school, the freshman team has a meeting every Wednesday from 9 to 10. And all AP classes are actually running from 9 to 10 at the high school on Wednesdays as well. And then again, if you look down, teachers have specific specific time so that students can actually go to them directly between 10 and 10:30 on their Black Day first period. That's open. Teachers are available during that time. Again, they have an RTI meeting, your lunch, and then students, teachers are available from 12:30 to 3 after they've had their lunch to work with students. They do instructional planning, collaborative work by departments, and PLC time. And Dr. Conway, correct me if I'm wrong, you actually have some students who are meeting with teachers directly on that Wednesday afternoon, right? Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure I pointed that out at the high school. All right. So, whoops, I'm going too fast. I apologize, you guys. So let's talk about the impact of closures going forward here and what that means. So when we have a closure, whether it's a COVID-related closure or a weather-related closure, we are taking attendance across all 3 grade levels. We expect students at the elementary level to be online between 90 to 120 minutes. Some of that time is a 30-minute block of time, especially if it's Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Some of that time is for their special time. They didn't want to eliminate that. They wanted to make sure that happened. The schedule at the middle school and the high school mirrors their day. So they basically follow their regular schedule, I guess is the way to say that. Instruction is a mix of whole group, small group, check-ins, independent work, feedback, etc. They all have office hours, and there is a provision, and I did it again, I apologize. There is a provision so that if there's a loss of internet or power, there's a way to communicate with their supervisor, and then their supervisor will follow the chain and make sure those people who need to know that the teacher or ed tech or whoever it is might be offline for whatever reason. But they need to communicate directly with their supervisor. And then principals are visiting classrooms remotely on those remote days. They have a schedule. Teachers have been asked to send their links directly to the principals to be able to work with. All right. So here's some, we think it's important that you guys know some positives that are happening right now as you're making decisions going forward. So there's been an increase of use of technology, and we've lessened kind of the digital divide K through 12. Students and teachers have had, and you guys know this, have had to be very flexible and very adaptable going forward. We've had to be very purposeful with our curriculum. We've had smaller class sizes, particularly at the middle school and the high school. We've increased empathy among stakeholders. We're having conversations now that we never had before. We are really working on student autonomy, getting them ready for this new world that they're entering into, and helping them understand that every choice they make has a consequence, both positive or negative, depending on how they move forward. There's a focus on health and safety as well as mental health. The students that we have here, guys, are very engaged. And that goes directly to the next bullet, which is we've had very little disciplinary issues this year across the board. So that's those are really positive things that have come out of this. So we thought it was really important that you see and hear those moving forward as well. Do we have challenges? Absolutely, we still have challenges. So in-person learner challenges are reduced seat time. Transportation, as you guys all know, continues to be a challenge. They've had limited socialization with their peers, no doubt about that, and limited collaboration with their peers, limited hands-on activities, and there are learning gaps primarily from last spring. Our at-home learner challenges include engagement. We talked a little bit about that. You'll see truancy on our list. We still have some connectivity issues. And again, socialization and collaboration with peers has been huge. Trying to get them to re-engage with their friend groups sometimes can be very challenging. And then, of course, the learning gaps that we continue to see going forward. Just want to remind you about the social emotional learning that we have in place through which children and adults acquire and effectively apply the knowledge, attitudes, and skills necessary to understand and manage emotions and set and achieve positive goals. So feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain positive relationships, and make responsible decisions with that as well. And again, I know there was a little bit of communication with the curriculum committee about taking a look at what does second step look like, bringing that forward. But it's, in particular, it's a pre-K to 5 program. It's pre-K to 8, I apologize. The program is research-based, easy to adapt and scale, and is offered in a classroom kit, which is printed materials at this point. Also at the middle school, also using the second step curriculum. Again, this one, there is a piece that's based directly on adolescent development and psychology. And there is a web-based component to this particular one. And again, at the high school, they're using the main Department of Education social emotional learning curriculum, which focuses on discussions, which again is appropriate for that level. It's a free curriculum that they're using. Advisors use it daily and progress through their cohorts and through a calendar that's created and designed to foster discussion, which prompts the SEL needs of high school students. And then district-wide, because I do think this is important, members of the SEL pillar group from the summer continue to meet through the school year. This is allowed for check-ins about climate, culture, and SEL needs. And are they being met for students and staff throughout the district? The group has continued to address concerns and come up with appropriate solutions to best support our learning communities. So those people have volunteer and they meet and have those discussions. So here we are. I threw a lot of information at you, but considerations moving forward for you. I know you have heard a little bit about vaccinations. There is a website. They have a dashboard now. You can go there and visit it. School staff is in 1C, which is the target date is May and June. There is a mass vaccination site coming to Augusta in a couple of weeks where they'll have 1,000 doses a day, depending on the supply chain. There will be a public portal to register, but what the person I talked with said, remember, it's not going to be an exclusive portal just for teachers. You're going to be working with other essential employees at that time. And one of the things that we've heard is that we will need to plan for rollout access to this, particularly the second dose, which affects somewhere around 30% plus or minus of staff where they have flu-like symptoms and potentially could be out a day or two. And that was based on someone I talked to at Maine General that shared that information with me. So that's kind of as much as I know at this point. So I did want to make sure I shared that information with you. I know I sent this out to you guys ahead of time. In your packets, you have the information around the data. And I'm not going to go through that page by page, just point out a couple of things for you. The number 3, which is on page 2, which is this is what our data numbers look like in terms of positive students across the 3 levels, as well as students that were in quarantine. Please remember that changes. It looks like Friday sometimes looks really bad, but Monday is actually a much better day. Most of those students who were in quarantine are actually back at school now. They were actually able to leave quarantine. The one that worries me the most is our staff quarantine, because that really hits us really tough when staff is out. So again, that's there. We continue to be green, the color designation. We continue to be green. We've been green all the way along, and you guys know that from there. I did put down my concerns, which is staffing shortages. That has hit us hard in the month of January. Not so much before that, but in the month of January, staffing shortages have really hit us hard. Transportation, and you guys know this already, transportation has hit us hard too. It seems like we go through waves with transportation where we get it back on track and then something happens. And unfortunately, this last time it was COVID related that kind of knocked out a couple of our buses. So I did also put at the end the dashboard that I started keeping right before Thanksgiving. It just says, I just do it every Friday after I meet with the nurses so that you can kind of see what the numbers have looked like across the schools. I did want to let you guys know that I did talk to some of the area schools around us as well. I did talk with Augusta and RSU 2. They're pretty much kind of staying with their schedule. That doesn't mean they may not change it a little bit later, but at this point, they're just kind of staying put. Madison and Gardner are looking to bring elementary school students back after the February break. It's either the week right after February vacation or the first week in March. It just kind of depends on what they're looking at, but that was Madison and Gardner. Both of those superintendents, when I talked to them, did not have a plan for middle school and high school at that point, but they were working on it as a board. They were trying to come up with a plan. So they're kind of right where we are right now as well. I did talk to John Moody, who's the superintendent in Skowhegan, as well as Carl Gartley in the Messalonsky RSU 18. Is it 18? I always say it wrong, so 18. And I asked him the question, I said, how did you manage to bring everyone back for 5 days? And he said, there's 3 things that I would tell you that influenced our decision. The first one is they had about 20% of their students that didn't come back. I mean, those schools are significantly bigger than we are, but they had about 20% of their students that didn't come back across the different grade levels, and that freed up room for them. They both said if that didn't happen, they would have had to look at some sort of cohort model, but they didn't have to go there. They rolled the dice and said, let's see who shows up right from the get-go. The other 2 things they talked about was they have newer buildings that were built in either the 80s or early 90s. That makes a difference. As you guys know, with the exception of this school, all of our buildings were built in the 70s or earlier. So that did make a difference. They also said the thing that you need to pay attention to is transitions. That has been their biggest challenge, but they have nice wide hallways. They actually have had like cafeterias in hallways and stuff like that to be able to kind of work through some of those challenges that we have that have really, we haven't found workable solutions yet for that. But those were kind of their 3 things of those 3 things helped us be able to open 5 days a week going forward. So I wanted to share that information with you guys also. I know that's a lot of information and I apologize. I just wanted to kind of give you guys as much of a picture as I could as to what's going on. We still have things we need to work on. I talked to a couple of board members yesterday. Remote learning, we did a weather-related one yesterday and it was enlightening to say the least. We have a lot of things we need to work on, but there was a lot of good things that happened also. But we need to kind of target those areas that we had a deficiency in. We have to target those areas and do a much better job than we're doing right now. So it's been a very busy last couple of days. We've had a lot of hard conversations at the administrative level about how to move forward and how to make sure we're doing a good job with what we're offering our students and being consistent and equitable across our schools. So with that, I'll turn it, I'll go sit down, but I know there's going to be discussion and there'll be questions. And like I said, I've got administrators here and they are more than willing to help answer some of those questions that may come up as we make some, or as we go through the deliberation process. Thank you, guys.
So are you giving them a recommendation on the elementary school?
So at this point, moving forward, one of the things that I would recommend, I'm going to say recommendation, may not be the right word. I'd ask you guys to consider, because I think in the end, it needs to be a vote by this committee, is do we want to bring, oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, guys. I apologize. I knew you guys were all looking at me like, what's he doing? So I do have a recommendation going forward that the elementary schools, we can probably bring that group back after February vacation. That's kind of where we are. We did talk about it as a team. I think we can do it on the Wednesdays. Again, one of the things that I worry about is staffing shortages when we go that route, but it's like anything else, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, as far as I'm concerned, and do what we have to do. I would recommend we don't make a decision on the high school or middle school, that we would wait until the March 3rd. I hope I've got the right date, March 3rd. And again, just take a look at those. I'll keep updating you guys as to what's going on at the middle and high school level at that time. So there's that to start with. I think that starts the discussion at least.
Make a motion. Go ahead, Kathy.
Jay, just a question. Has there been any consideration of keeping the Wednesdays as they are, but extending the other 4 days?
I'll be very honest in saying there's no way I can make that happen because of contractual issues and what we'd have to do with, and I know it sounds horrible and I apologize for that. We have to find time for teachers to have a lunch contractually. Right now, they're not having lunch until 1:30. So we'd have to retool our schedule to be able to do that. And I'm not sure that if we extend the day, that's going to have an impact on high school, middle school and high school as well. And our busing won't be able to do it. And I'm sorry, those sound like really, I hate having to say that, but it's the truth. So.
Reality.
Go ahead, Patty.
I wonder about if the elementary schools return to Wednesday in person, there'll still be the remote learners, right?
Yes.
So who is going to do what the teachers were doing on Wednesdays with the remote learners how are they getting taken care of? And who's going to do all of the things that were on your slide of all of the PD that the elementary school's doing if they're with in-person instruction? I'm just wondering how that's going to happen because I can't see it right now.
It's definitely a change in dynamics for sure. One of the other things that we did talk about was the potential for like an interim step of going back where we take remote days and define a schedule and actually have students and teachers online on Wednesday with students as kind of an interim step to get back to Wednesdays. That's something else that we talked about as a team. We think we can do that. We would have a lot of work to do between now and February, the last week of February to be ready to do that. But it was something that we did talk about as a team as well as could we do that with the elementary school as an interim step. But I think it's one of the two. Either we look at remote days and we really flesh those out and have that in place ready to go after vacation, or we go to bringing Wednesdays as an in-person day back using the 8 to 1 schedule. So.
But either one of those, the PD that the staff was doing wouldn't happen.
Right.
So
right.
Would that just evaporate or would?
Well, one of the things that we talked about was the idea of we've done a lot of PD and it's time to put it into action. So it's not that we don't want to give them more PD or anything like that, but the other piece is we want that to go into action at this point. We at the elementary level, we're not where the middle school and high school are remotely, and we need to get there, and we need to kind of push that. So we drafted out some like schedules, and I don't have it in front of me, but I had one where we actually listed out times for when the students would be online with the teachers on Wednesday. And we just kind of started that discussion. But again, I said, let's see where the board wants to go with this. But we have to put what we've learned into practice, I think, at this point.
John?
Was there any talk of all students going back to like a full remote schedule, like remote learning days on Wednesday, so students have access to their teachers and being
Yes,
taught?
we actually had a meeting this morning, and we did talk about that very thing, that if we do that with the elementary school, there are a few things we're going to tweak with the middle school and high school schedules as well for that. I hope I answered that.
Would high school and middle school be being taught like they are the other? If you look at this schedule, if they were remote on Wednesdays, would they be taught 5 hours a day? Or
We'd be looking at them following their regular class, yes. I guess that's what I want to say. I hope I understand your question.
I'm
right.
talking in-person teaching.
Yeah.
Teaching, the teachers teaching the student.
Yeah.
Not just them doing the work that's given to
Right,
them.
right. No, there would be definitely teaching going on, so there would actually be meeting during that time with the class, whether it's small group, whole class, or individually, they'd actually be working with students during that time. I hope I'm answering
At
that.
all grade levels. I'm talking high school, middle school, elementary school.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So,
Go ahead, Kathy.
so I'm just going to express my concern again about the high school. And I said this in September. They have 10 hours of in-person learning a week for 70% of our kids. That's a real concern of mine. And if we asked in September to have some kind of a plan to increase that, and this is the first time I've heard of anything in remotely close to that. I mean, and when we talk about remote, the other concern I have is the connectivity. 3 days in a row at my house, the internet's been off and on, off and on. I've been trying to do my own remote Zoom meetings, and it's been hard. And there are families around me that had no internet all day Monday. Yesterday, during the snow day, it was a mess. So I'm wondering how you know that and what the plan is for that. I'm just really concerned about the high school kids. And in reading Kristen's report about the importance of relationships and success of our kids, one of the most important things is that relationship that teachers have with kids. Our kids need their teachers, not on a screen, in person.
Go ahead, John.
How are those 65 kids chosen who get to go to school 4 days a week? I mean, how is that chosen?
Yeah, I don't know.
Definitely an
It's-
advantage.
Yeah, yeah. I'll let Dr. Conway speak to that because he's been managing that.
Sure. So it's students who are at risk, maybe have plans, have low connectivity, as Kathy mentioned, situations like that.
Did you say at risk?
At risk one way or another, sometimes at risk for not graduating.
Gotcha. Not at risk health-wise?
I just want to address that. I can think of a few students who are at risk safety-wise, being at home during those times. Sorry?
Did it include CATSI? Does it include CATSI as well? Because aren't they 4 days? Or does that number not include, is it in addition to CATSI
The
students?
cohort D?
Yeah, the 65 that are 4 days a week, is it also the CATSI students or is it in addition to?
I think it's in addition to, is the way it's.
Because Dr. Conway, correct me if I'm wrong, CATSI is running 4 days a week right now, right?
CATSI is,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, so good question.
Thank you, motion.
I just might be a little lengthy, so I thought I'd wait until the end. Okay, so first,
just wanted to thank those who participated in January's as well as tonight's meeting by responding to the survey, writing letters or speaking live at those meetings. Last month, I did address some of my points mentioned by the teacher presentation, and I have since had some more time to read through letters and further examine the data and comments from the survey, and therefore I'd like to take a moment to share a few thoughts. First, I want to be clear that my opinion on needing more in-person learning is strictly based on wanting students in our district to get the best, most equitable education possible, and it is not because I feel our teachers are not working hard. I do not voice my opinions without consideration of the data as well as the science behind it. Additionally, I mentioned last time that I am not fighting for more in-person time without having witnessed its possibilities as a sub at a school that returned to their full-time schedule this fall. I personally have worn a mask from 8:20 to 3:15 and have been responsible for ensuring elementary-aged children are following the rules put in place by the DOE. Although I would not say they are easy, I would say they are definitely possible, and therefore we should consider adding more in-person time within our district so our students don't continue to fall behind. For the students who wrote letters, I'd like to say how mature and well thought out they were, as well as how important it is to be involved in the student government process and be active in their own education. They requested that their concerns be addressed by us, and unfortunately, many of the concerns voiced by the students need to be discussed with either parents, teachers, school counselors, and/or building principals, since they were regarding stress, workload, office hours, proper use of masks and/or hand sanitizer, and as a board, we are here to make decisions regarding a broader, big picture of education in our district. I would, however, mention that there was a publication by the American Academy of Pediatrics given to the board by a member of our community, where it cites that, quote, we examined 11 school districts with nearly 100,000 students and staff open for 9 weeks of in-person instruction, tracking secondary transmission of COVID. Within the school, infections were extremely rare. Perhaps in reading information about the lack of spread within schools, it will help mitigate some of the stress associated with more in-person time. I would also like to clarify a few points regarding the survey results themselves. The survey requested comments for those who said no to more in-person time, but conversely, did not allow those who said yes to explain why. The results from the family survey very clearly indicated that 68.8% of families want their kids back in school more, and although they weren't given the opportunity to explain why, those results are still very clear. In the January meeting where we discussed the survey, the voice of families were undervalued as far as the actual decision about adding more in-person time for instruction. It was noted in the teacher presentation that seat time shouldn't be an indication of the level of education a child is receiving. And although on some levels I do agree with that statement, I also think that if there was no benefit to a required seat time, there would also be no need for a required number of school days, an attendance policy, or a truancy policy. Since the state and our district follows those policies and does so to try to ensure some kind of equity for all students based on seat time, then I feel we should consider increasing seat time in order to better serve the wide range of students within our community. As far as understanding a statement that was made about teachers have families too, please understand my awareness of that. I appreciate that what all our teachers are doing, the stress they are under, the many directions that they are being pulled, and the dedication they have shown to being flexible in this environment. With that said, I think we also need to have an understanding that students have families too, families who may have lost jobs, seen a reduction in the number of hours they can work, adults in the household who still go to work every day for more than 4.5 hours that their kids are now in school. Students are feeling stress from whatever situation they are in at home without the comfort, familiarity, and consistency that school used to provide. During this pandemic, all parents, including those who are teachers and those who work other jobs outside the home, know that attending school for only 18 hours of what is normally a 32.5-hour week all need to be teachers, at least part-time, in addition to being parents and having a full-time job. In thinking about those numbers, 18 hours versus 32.5, also consider that the bulk of the additional 14.5 hours students are no longer spending at school would normally mostly be in class, because the current 18-hour schedule, our kids are still receiving elementary level, obviously, one recess, and all students are still going to lunch. As we continue to discuss this decision of in-person learning, we should really consider how much our students are losing through all of this. At-home assignments and busy work or packets do not have the same effectiveness of being in the classroom. During this pandemic, it has become increasingly clear how much we need our teachers. We are lucky to have such an amazing group of teachers in our district, and that is why the comfort, familiarity, and consistency of more in-person time is being requested by 68.8% of families. Make no mistake, none of us have been through a pandemic before. We are all stressed, parents, students, and teachers alike. But it is the students that are losing out the most because they are losing the quality of education they are receiving, which will have long-term effects on their success later in life. Additionally, we keep talking about stress during the pandemic, but since the kids have not had a regular education or a consistent schedule for almost a year, have we considered the detrimental effects that will have once we finally are introduced back to a normal schedule and how much worse it may be the longer we wait? Families wanting more in-person time recognizes the hard work that was done by everyone in this district to ensure the buildings were safe before returning to school. Science indicates that when all people wear masks properly and also have distance between one another, masks have a 90 to 95% effectiveness, which is equal to that of the vaccines currently on the market. The community spread that is happening is under circumstances where not everyone is following those rigorous guidelines. As indicated by the teacher presentation last month, at school, those guidelines are being followed, which means the likeliness of contracting the illness from school is very minimal and reduced. Kennebec County has been lucky enough to enjoy a green status throughout the entire school year, yet we still only have children attending school 18 hours a week and 9 at the high school. Even Dr. Fauci on January 28th is quoted as saying it's less likely for a child to get infected in a school setting than if they were just in the community. The evidence is clear on all fronts. 68.8% of parents want kids in school more. Dr. Shaw has supported the data that kids in Maine aren't getting the illness from school, and now even Dr. Fauci is encouraging it. So tonight, we should consider voting to allow our kids to go to school more frequently. Our job as board members is to ensure the students in our community are getting a good education, not good under the circumstances, not as good as everyone else because of the pandemic, but an education that prepares them for the world they will face after graduation. Unfortunately, the skills needed to succeed in that world after graduation are not adjusted because we are in a pandemic. If anything, those skills are being tested even more, and our students are not being prepared properly due to the need to adjust the curriculum based on the pandemic. We have had a total of 22 professional development days if you consider the late start for students back in September and every Wednesday since school has started. Every student in the district has been issued either a laptop or an iPad for at-home use, all of which are amazing accomplishments and improvements for student learning in our district now and into the future. Kids are resilient. We have heard it time and again how surprised teachers and principals are with how compliant students have been. Why do we automatically assume that is because of the shortened week instead of assuming that due to the practice they have had and the great job that they have done, we can now increase how many hours they are at school? Kids need structure and the routine of school. And my fear is the longer we are away from school, the harder it will be once this pandemic is over. Since we have stayed green since day one of school, we have witnessed that COVID has not spread within the classroom. We have seen the benefits of the strict guidelines and the creativity of what teachers have been able to accomplish under challenging circumstances. The time has come to add more in-person learning.
Very good.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Kim. Go ahead, John.
Good job, Kim. Jay, I guess I have a question. Why can't we add more hours for the high school and middle school?
The high schools in, sorry. I apologize, so the high schools and cohorts, so if we want to get more time, and it's something we have talked about, which is doing a rotation on Wednesday for those cohorts so that they at least are getting, every 2 weeks, they'd be getting an extra day or class or school day, I guess is the way I should say that. That'll take some logistical challenges, but I mean, again, it's definitely possible to be able to do that, to get ready for it. The middle school, one of my biggest fear with the middle school right now is that they have the most students in the building at any one given time. And the closures that they have had, the move to remote has been dictated a lot by the staff contacts. And that really worries me going forward until we have some sort of, I'm just really worried about staff because it tends to hit the staff a little bit more at the middle school. Yeah, go ahead, Sean, of course. Yeah, keep going. Yeah. Yeah, I am. Yes, sorry.
Well, I guess on that note, I'm going to start. I have a motion I want to make.
Go ahead.
That starting after February break, the middle school will return 5 days a week on the day that superintendent recommended. And I'd further recommend that the high school put a plan in place for, I don't have a calendar in front of me. I should have had a date, but March 3rd to return so that students are in school on a rotating basis every other Wednesday. And I further, in that same motion, that kids are full remote, meaning in front of a teacher at the middle school on Wednesdays.
You just repeat that so I make sure I've got all.
He's got 3 different items.
Yeah, so I've got all the pieces. And I don't know if Ron was able to get all those pieces either, so.
Okay. Number one, I think I'll go in the same order. We return to school after February break, the elementary schools 5 days a week from 8 to 1. Number two is the high school starting March 3rd, have a plan in place to return every other Wednesday, split it up, however that works. That's not my job to figure out. Number three is that all schools, when they are remote, are being taught in front of a teacher as the schedules are divided up 5 days a week. I guess I'll use the middle school as an example because that's what I have in front of me. I think that students need their teacher. I've seen it, I guess, with my own students. There's a huge difference between today. I stayed home with them to see the difference. There was a huge difference between today and yesterday. Humongous difference. And maybe I'm wrong, but the parents I've talked to, I've done some sampling, not a huge sample. There was some students that the teachers weren't. And again, someone can correct me if I'm wrong. I can only go with what I'm told. Again, maybe miscommunication, I don't know. But there were some students that their teachers weren't available for 90 minutes is what I was told. Maybe that's not true. I don't know. I can only go based on what I'm told. So that's my motion.
Do I hear a second?
Yeah. Every other Wednesday, that students would be split by cohort starting March 3rd.
The first one you had middle school, then you switched it.
5 days a week.
Middle school is 4 days a week, but Wednesdays are in-person, remote, or however you want to call it, for 90 minutes or whatever the policy.
I have one thing, the first weekend of March is going to be one of those.
Okay, I'm moving to a different date.
So March 8th,
I'm fine with that, but I need a second.
I second it.
Sean, can I ask a clarifying question?
Yeah, we can spend a second. So.
Okay,
Dane, did you say? I just want to make sure.
Yep.
So we got it on record. Okay, thank you.
Gary, can I just ask, I want to understand what you meant about the in-person remote. You mean like a snow day or like a?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
From what I'm hearing from parents, students need their teachers, and that only means 90 minutes. I mean, according to the policy, or up to 120 minutes.
Any further discussion?
March 8th.
Whatever date she
said 10.
Please use the microphones.
So it was changed to the week of March 8th, which I believe the Wednesday would be the 10th, would be the first date. Dane did,
Dane?
sorry.
Any further discussion?
Did you make any reference to the elementary schools? Do we-
No, you didn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you make it? 5, yeah. Sean made the motion, so,
You want 5 days on the elementary?
yeah, 5 days in
Correct.
person on the elementary school is what it, yeah. Oh,
Betty, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Okay, I need to hear that motion again because it changed from the first time he said it to the second time.
is it okay? Sean, are you okay if I try or do you want to do it? Okay. So if and please correct me if I say something wrong. So the first part of the motion is that the elementary schools would move to 5 days a week in the 8 to 1 timeframe, beginning the week right after February break. The high school would start a rotation on March 8 as the second part of that motion. And then the third part of the motion was the middle school Wednesday would be a remote day with teacher contact. Teacher teaching, I guess. I hope I'm saying it the way you meant it. Yeah. Yeah, right.
So Jay, not to be picky, but does that also mean that we're starting at 8 instead of 8:30, since you just said 8?
Oh, well, the school doors open at 8. I apologize. Classes actually start at 8:30, so I apologize. Thank you, Kim.
Can I just, a little clarification on the middle school? Are you talking about synchronous learning
Yes.
during that time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, roll call vote.
Oh,
Go ahead.
oh.
There. I wanted to ask about the original plan that we've now jumped past. How, so even on the original plan, we've already discussed that the professional training would be lost. And on the original plan, we will be able to keep, as you mentioned, what the evaluations have said, why schools are not transmitting as badly as the public situation, is because of the social distancing, the guidelines, the cleaning, the masks, and because the students and the teachers and the staff are better than the public at maintaining those. When we were just doing our original hybrid model, there was a lot of struggle to maintain the social distancing, to arrange the lunches and the transitions and the busing. So my questions had to do with your original plan of just dealing with the elementary schools. Within your planning, you were able to take care of all of those so that we would remain safe, so that we would keep those controls that appear nationally to have been protecting student transmission. And so I am fine with opening up tomorrow if we're going to maintain the safety of the students and the teachers and the staff, and in that way, the community. If we're cutting corners, if we're pushing something that are community problems with COVID are perhaps reducing now, but are worse than they were for a large part of the year. That does not speak to, hey, let's open up now. Everybody involved in dealing with this pandemic situation has been making major sacrifices and losing out on a lot. Like the individuals that I watch out for haven't even been allowed to go visit families. They haven't been out going in stores in the public at all for what will be a year. Now that's, we can say, oh, that's emotional problems and so forth, but it's not. But so there's a huge need to be safe. And if we can do that, I'm fine. But this motion, for me, would have to include, this is not going to happen if we can't do that. If I can't get the brakes on my car fixed so that it will stop when I need it to, I'm not going to be driving it. And I would apply that to this.
Yeah. Patty?
David's comments just made me think about at the January meeting when we talked about this, there was a letter we got in our packet from the district nurses and Dr. Sewall recommending against additional in-person time. Has there been an update in information from the medical folks in our district? I'm just curious, thinking about what you were just saying.
No,
I'm asking
yeah,
you, Jake.
Yeah, no, I haven't received anything from them
Okay.
officially, so,
Okay,
I
thank
mean,
you.
I meet with them every Friday, but I mean, that's to discuss cases and stuff, so, but I haven't had anything official from them.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Kim.
There are officially records from both Dr. Fauci and Dr. Shaw, though, who are running it as doctors for the entire country and the whole state that do say that it's going to be okay.
What they say is transmission isn't in schools. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but our people are saying, I don't want to argue with you, but our people are saying, we're saying in January anyway, they wouldn't recommend, despite that, in addition to that, they wouldn't recommend more in-person time at this time because of the safety issues.
Okay, roll call.
You want to check online just
Anybody online?
Betty.
With this motion, do we have sufficient transportation to do this?
Sorry. Yes, we do at this point. That could change, but at this point, we do. Mhm.
Go ahead, call it up. Yeah.
All right, here we go. Do it again. Here we go. Kim,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yes.
Dane,
Yes.
Kathy, yes. Melissa,
I'm going to abstain.
Alex,
Yes.
Patty,
No.
Rebecca,
No.
Betty,
No.
John,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
and David.
No,
7, I've got 7 yeses, 4 noes, and 1 abstention. So the motion passes. Okay. Oh, I don't know if you.
Go ahead, John.
But also, I don't know if this is the right time, but maybe we can put it on the next agenda or recommend it to the policy committee. I think it's time with all the remote learning going on that our district have a, I asked the superintendent, I talked to him about this.
Yeah.
If we had a policy, what's expected during remote learning, like what's expected for school hours and all that. And Jay, you can correct me if I'm wrong, if I understood you correct, we do not.
No, we
So I'd
don't.
like to make a motion to recommend that the policy committee come up with a policy when it comes to remote learning days and what that means.
Second. Or agreed. I don't think we need a motion for that. I don't think
Do we need a
do.
motion?
I don't think we need a motion for that.
We'll make sure it's on the policy.
Yeah,
Cons-
okay. So we should do a vote on it then. Okay. So the motion is to
Have a policy on remote learning.
have a
Remote
policy
learning,
on
what's
remote learning.
expect, or whatever would go into a policy,
Yeah.
because we're the policy committee,
Yep.
what people teach during.
Alex, did you second that? Did I
Yeah,
get
it's
that
like,
right?
I do have a quick question. Do you have any examples?
Don't want to misspeak, you were going to check into that?
Yeah, I was going to check with MSMA
Okay,
to see if anyone's developing one. So,
okay, perfect. Thank
Yep.
you.
Roll call.
all righty. Kim,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yes.
Dane,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
Rebecca, Rebecca, are you still there?
Yes, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, now we got you. Betty,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
and David.
Yes.
All right, passes unanimously. There.
Okay. well,
All right, so you guys ready to talk about budget now? From one hot
So we
topic
have
to
two
another.
meetings coming up as listed there under 8. Budget workshop.
I'm going to jump up there again. Yeah. There we go. So again, I'll try to be quick. Just remind you guys of the goal that we set at the beginning of this new budget cycle to support all students' academic, social, and emotional success while maintaining physical responsibility. Some of the team directives, again, just as a reminder, little to no increase in spending. We're shooting for a 0% increase. Increased transparency and equity of spending practices, instructional line spending based on number of students in a building with additional allotments for Title I schools. Class sizes of 15 to 20 in the elementary, 18 to 22 in the middle school, and 10 or more at the high school. And not all positions will be automatically filled. We will evaluate them as they come open. We don't want the budgeting process to become contentious between the towns and the districts, so we want to be as transparent as possible. And as part of the administrative team, we will be continuing to have meetings to discuss the factors affecting our budget and review requests as a team based on the overall goal that I just shared with you. So again, like last year, the principal budgets, they did a really fantastic job really looking closely at what their needs were at the school. And they have an even more challenging, because of fluctuating numbers, they have an even more challenging road ahead of them. So the only two requests that are going to come through is Manchester requested an additional teacher. They have a lot of uncertainty about their numbers. They have some bubble classes coming in. And in a lot of the elementary schools, this is also kind of common. We're not sure where our pre-K numbers are down this year. So going into kindergarten, depending on what's going on in the fall, we may see some of our kindergarten numbers actually go up, which is this year's pre-K. But Manchester, we definitely want to pay close attention to that. And tentatively, we've added one additional teacher in there. The middle school has asked for 2 team leader stipends. And those stipends are in the teacher's contract. They're $2,200 each. One was for the interventionist to be part of the leadership team, and one for technology. And in talking with Dr. Levac, they actually are doing that job right now with no stipend, while other people on those teams are getting a stipend. So we thought we would at least bring it forth. We did talk about this last year as well, but I thought we'd bring it forth and just let you guys know where those are. So those are really the only 2 principal requests that are above and beyond what we did last year. The English language learners, we currently have 4/10 of a teacher. It's actually, the teacher actually does this job and teaches pre-K. So we're recommending that we stay with that current staffing. We don't have a large population of students. Typically we fluctuate a little bit from 2 to 7. We've been pretty steady this year at about 5. Sometimes it's low, sometimes it's high. It just depends on what we get. There hasn't been a lot of movement in or out in terms of English language learner students this particular year, but in other years it kind of bounces all over the place. So there's no recommended changes. We're leaving everything as is in the English language learner line. The gifted and talented line, again, that's been a little bit challenging this year, but what we're trying to do is keep the program costs comparable. We currently have 2.2 FTEs, and they service kindergarten through 12th grade. And typically, with the target population is about 10% of the students. And we've been very consistent with that going across. And again, that covers both the arts and the academic side of things. So we're really looking to keep that the same going forward as well. Moving on to special education, and I do have Ryan here so he can help me out because he obviously knows a lot more about this line than I do, but I will share with you what we're looking at. There is an addition of 1 middle school learning center teacher. The current caseload is close to the state's maximum level, which comes out of Chapter 101. And we anticipate needing this additional position for the students we will have next year. So we're very close this year. We think next year we're actually going to cross that line. We are budgeting for 2 additional district out of district placements based on students who moved in this year, and that happened after the school year had started. This is going to include transportation, such as busing, and there will be a bus aid that is needed for those students. Again, we don't have much flexibility with that due to the way special ed is structured. Based on the potential state shift in how services are paid for students, connected with the main education center of the deaf and hard of hearing, which is formerly Baxter. Again, Chapter 304, we're anticipating the need for additional services such as interpreting going into next year. So that's going to be an additional special ed cost going forward. So before I go to the very next piece, questions that I can answer or I can ask anyone to come up with?
Most of his budget is funded by the state.
Yes.
So, I mean, even though it's just, it's money in and money out.
Right, right. He still's got to manage it, and Ryan does a really good job of managing that. Put in a
So you
plug
missed
for
one
him.
thing on the elementary school we talked about, and you said we need to replace the computers.
Yes, that'll be coming in Diane's presentation next week or next board meeting. We'll be looking at the budget stuff and technology as well. So we're trying to give you bits and pieces at a time here. So, of course, David.
On the gifted and talented, you say it's limited to 10% of the student population. How do we control that? what do we do if we get a couple more students that are looking to
Right.
grow more and aren't?
So there's a whole process that we go through in terms of identifying students who are already in the program and or new to the district. And if a student comes in with GT programming to us, like moves in, then we have to continue to provide that. So even if it bumps us up over 10%, we still have to do that because they've already been identified before they came to our school. So,
Okay, so we're not excluding students.
Right.
Because we don't want to go over 10%.
right, exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah. Alex, of course.
Kind of to piggyback David's question. So the evaluation, is it like grading on a curve?
No.
No,
No,
okay.
it's,
So,
there's a whole process that I'm not even going to begin to try to
Okay,
explain,
okay.
but it is a whole process and it's not marked on a curve. Don't think of it as a curve. What we do is very different from that.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, why don't I have you come up if that's okay, Nancy?
I think what's kind of interesting about the way gifted and talented students are identified, it's different than most other entitlement categories because it's the top 5% of the students in the talent pool that year. So you might not be eligible with a certain set of scores and attributes this year, but next year you might be because it depends on who else is in the pool with you. So for that reason, in our district, we used to only do it in benchmark years, like fifth grade, eighth grade, and high school. And now what we've done is if a student was in the talent pool the year before and they qualify again for it the next year, we let them be in the talent pool again if they want to, so that they have another chance with a different group. Just to give people the benefit.
No, thank you, Nancy.
I think Dane?
Two questions. Do all the elementary schools have a full-time nurse now?
Wayne and Mount Vernon are sharing a nurse right now, and that's working really well. So we don't have to, he's doing a really good job. So we don't have one in every school. Mount Vernon and Wayne share, but everybody else does have one.
And what about PE teachers for elementary school? Didn't we lose one?
Yeah, we had, yes, so we had one, I want to say it was one, Bridget might be able to help me out with that. The PE, we reduced to one last year, but before that, it was like 1.2 total, right?
Right. Currently, we have one full-time PE teacher that services all 4 elementary schools. We had one retire last year. And at that point, we had 1.2, but we reduced it down to 1 this year.
So we've already started to look at what the schedule is going to be for next year, because I knew you were probably going to, not you, but I knew that question was going to come up, and we need to take a look at that. So, yeah, right on. Other questions?
Moving on.
All right, so I'll hand this off to you guys. Tonight is typically, so for those that are new or don't remember, typically we do the first round of the budget, first draft with everything added in. So that's what this paper is, and you'll see it broken out, and I'll talk you guys through it here. I just give it a minute and make sure it gets to everyone. So again, just as a review, as you're taking a quick look at it, you can see it's broken out by schools, along with district-wide resources and facilities, transportation, going down. What most people look at is where are we falling? So if you go the bottom line where it says grand total, go all the way across, you'll see that this first initial draft is up from last year by 4.82%. If you'll move over to the left, that translates to a little over $900,000. Again, this is just where we're starting. So it's really important that you guys know that. So again, you haven't seen everything yet either in terms of the, in terms of technology, transportation, facilities, et cetera. There's still some pretty big cost centers there, but it just gives you an idea of where we are as we build things in. So I've got one more paper I'm going to pass out to you guys right now. That'll let you see some of where that cost comes from. I'm passing that along again.
This account 920, other facilities and transportation, 115% increase.
That's transportation, yes.
What are we buying?
Oh,
Do you want to discuss that tonight, Jay, or wait until we do transportation and facilities?
yes, if that's okay, Gary, we will talk about that, but it would be better if we kind of stayed with what's there. I know there's a lot to process and take a look at. So in the paper that I just handed out to you guys, just wanted to show you some of what makes up that $900,000. So salary increases alone account for $540,000. And what you see there in there is, like, for example, the Manchester extra classroom teacher, the special ed teacher. We are going to offset that with not filling 2 special ed tech roles. The special education interpreter, the transportation maintenance administrative assistant, the 2 custodians moving from 6 hours a day to 8 hours a day. The curriculum director, Nancy's been with us for 60% time. We'll be looking to move that back to 100% time going into next year. The summer technology support staff, because there will be a lot to do this coming summer with technology for sure. And then as some of you guys have started and you know, we have to anticipate what the increase might be with the support staff contract as well. So that's built in there. So there's a little bit of a cushion as we work through negotiations there. Also health and dental, that's $293,000. That's 10% increase in health and 5% on dental. We will only find that out what the actual amount is. So we're hoping we can reduce that, but we build 10% in and then we back it down versus building 5% and then having to raise it up 2%. The out-of-district tuition and transportation is going to be our responsibility. Maintenance is going to be up $36,000 from last year. But when we meet as a facilities committee next week, we will be going through that particular budget to take a very close look at what can we do with that in terms of the project. So we may, that again, it may change. And then just for your own information, there is some debt that has come off. The middle school fields and bonds are all paid off. So that's a nice thing to have off of our books, as well as the renovation bond at the high school. And you can see that number's a little bit lower. We did have 3 buses leases that are going to be paid off. We will be having 2 new ones coming on. That's built into the budget when we talk about transportation as well. So that kind of gives you a snapshot of a good chunk of that $900,000. There's still a lot of work to do. This is just an initial first draft. So questions, And I have Bridget here, so she can really help me if you guys have any big questions. Go ahead, Alex, of course.
So the middle school debt, high school renovation bond, and bus lease,
Yep,
is that calculated into the change?
right, so that, right, yes. So it's still, even with those things coming off our books, we're still up $900,000 right now.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
I-
Okay. Yeah. That was.
yeah.
I was trying to get
Yeah,
confirm my
Yeah.
thesis on. Yeah. My hypothesis
Yeah.
on that one. Okay.
other questions? I know it's getting late, so it's hard to process, but certainly as you go forward, if you have any questions, don't be afraid to reach out. Every meeting going forward now, we will be discussing budget every single meeting. So as you think of things, please make sure you bring them forward so that we can address them, give you the information you need as we go forward. Go ahead, Alex, of course.
We did get the state funding, right?
Yes, so we are
Proposed.
up state funding wise about $62,000, which isn't a huge amount, but it's better than a lot of districts around us, so,
Okay. And that's the proposed budget, right?
right,
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah. So, good. I will sit down, but that's the end of my kind of
So-
presentation.
Jay,
Oh, yes, of course.
we were talking, Sean made a comment last meeting, I think it was, about buses, drivers.
Yep,
And I talked to you about it.
yep. I meet with them tomorrow morning at 9:15, so I'll give
Right.
you a report right after that.
I realize that isn't on this first draft, but it's,
Yeah.
what Sean said was
Yeah.
totally accurate. When you hire somebody with a commercial license, they get credit for their
Yep.
uh,
Their experience.
time driving, holding the license, but they do not get credit for jumping everybody in line.
Right,
But you do get paid when you go for a job. So that's one of the things that's screwed up with our contract right now. And we need to get that corrected, otherwise you're never going to be able to hire drivers. It's going to stay. In fact, we lost one driver because of that. Okay, I think we're almost down to the end here, aren't we? Where are we at?
there. I don't know.
Citizens' comments regarding the budget? I hear none. Any further discussion by the board? Adjourned.